Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our annual pre-retirement seminar. I'm Meg Cow, the Benefits and HR Manager, and I'm here with Sarah Getze. She's our Acting Treasurer and Benefits Officer. And today we've invited Frank O'Brien to present and
Morning.
Bob Christoffel. They're on the Wespath benefit team. So welcome. So let's get started. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. It's Bob Christophel's pleasure to be here as well. I am a senior benefits educator here at Wespath. Bob is the manager of benefits education. Bob's role today will be to work behind the scenes. In no particular order, there's some things to speak about before we get started. One of them is we have the question box, not the chat box, but the question box. Go in, you ask questions that you have. Bob will respond as he can, like online, but also periodically throughout the webinar. I will take a break, see if any questions have come in, or if Bob wants to kind of add anything to what we are talking about. And certainly if I get on a roll and I have not done that, Bob will pop back in and say, hey, we got a couple of things that did come up. This webinar, this whole program will be recorded. We're recording right now. What we will do is we'll take the big recording, and it'll take us a few business days to get it spliced down so that you're just going to get the segments. You'll get the Wespath retirement plans, you get the VIA benefits, Social Security, and what have you. So we'll have that provided back to Meg, who can then post, distribute, and so on. Traditionally, when we have one of these events, what we do about a week or two in advance is we get the enrollment list or the registration list. We run a job that generates clergy service records and retirement benefit projections. But due to changes that occurred at General Conference 2024, the Ministerial Pension Plan 65% with the second option of LSRI, Life Stage Retirement Income, and the upcoming Compass Plan, that benefit projection is under development. And we think we're close, but we don't want to set an expectation that it's going to be any day, any moment now. Bob and I are a part of the testing team, so we know we are moving in the right direction. What I will do at the time in which it is back in production, if you will, and we can use it, is I'll generate and either through US mail or through email, provide for you that clergy service record and that benefit projection. So you'll see that subsequently. Each of you did receive an email from me that had the additional kit materials that get provided with the clergy service record and the projection. So information on the plans, the retirement checklist, information on the comprehensive protection plan, housing allowance worksheet, EY, LSRI. At Wespath, we love to give information to you. We love to provide information and education and communication services for you, which is what we're doing today, but certainly you have a lot of avenues and a lot of venues for you to do that as well. So I think I have handled all of the preliminary homework, and I will then, as I stumble around here a little bit, share my screen. Okay. And then come back here, slideshow from the beginning. Bob, can we see this?
Not yet, Frank.
Yeah, okay, give me a moment. Sometimes Zoom with the share can be a little bit. Okay, where? All right, just give me a moment. It's not showing there. Okay, there it is. Is it showing now, Bob? Bob?
Yes, I see the slide sorter mode.
Okay, so here we go. Now we're up in business, yes?
Good. Looking good, Frank.
All right, great. So I'm going to drop this down. All right, there we go. Sorry, so we just got to get the whole platform set up. So the road to retirement. The agenda for today And this will take, in and around 2 hours to go through it. Again, take advantage of the question box, and Bob and I will continue to discuss certain things as we move through this morning. We're going to talk about retirement. We're going to talk about the 2025 retirement process. Now, for this presentation, even though it's a pre-retirement, so people may be in the retiree class for next year, or they may be a couple or few or many years away from retirement, we will use 2025 in our examples, our modeling, and some other information that we provide to you. So when you're seeing 2025, it just kind of gives us a part of a foundation to make this presentation as worthwhile as possible. We'll go through the retirement plans, Clergy Retirement Security Program, Ministerial Pension Plan, Pre-82, the UMPIP. We will touch on Compass. We don't have a great deal on Compass right now. Just one slide about contributions. I'll just touch on how distributions will work. But we are in the process of developing a communication and education strategy, process materials, and all, where more specific Compass information will be provided. We'll talk about life stage retirement income. It's the program where you're asking us to derive the amount of monthly installment payments for you from your account balances. And then there's going to be certain requirements around life stage retirement income that you'll be hearing about as well. We'll go through the housing allowance exclusion, death and disability benefits, or resources, and other areas that are not necessarily on the agenda, but are relevant and pertinent to today's presentation. Often going into retirement, people are considering and thinking retirement. Are they ready for retirement? Is now the right time to retire, or should I wait? And with all of these questions that we're going to present, there isn't any right or wrong answer. It's everybody's own particular situation. Some people like to continue to stay on in ministry or other work for a while, and other people are very much looking forward to going into that retirement appointment status. The question, are you ready? And again, there's various elements to answering the question, are you ready? But also, is your spouse ready? Is the spouse ready? Going into retirement appointment, it changes the dynamic of the household. The clergy person is around more often. There's opportunities to do different things, travel, move, all of that. With that, there's the question of, will I have enough income to go into retirement? And where will I live? Some clergy persons that we are aware of will stay in the local area where they are. It's their home. It's been their home, and maybe most of their family, as well as their friends, are there. But we often hear about the children and the grandchildren are elsewhere in the United States or even overseas every once in a while. And so the individual and spouse, will move. But we also know about situations where the family still may be over here, but the retirement home has already been purchased. And that is going to be the target of where those individuals will go. And then what will I do with my time? Some people go into retirement appointment as clergy and continue in pulpit supply and continue to work for a period of time. Some will not work at all. Some will go into an employment situation just to go out and socialize. Isn't necessarily for the point of bringing in the additional income, but it helps. But some people might want to do that. Other people have hobbies. Some people play golf, fish, photography. So, getting that feel for, hey, what am I going to be able to do? What am I going to want to do? Things maybe I don't have a lot of time to do now. What can I do with my time when I get into retirement? When we come back to thinking about the provisions for retirement, we look at the Book of Discipline and what kind of criteria do you have to hit your certain retirement thresholds. So the first one we have is normal retirement. Normal retirement is age 65 or 40 years of service. And or is the key word here. If you're age 61, 62, and you have 40 years of service, you can retire under the normal retirement provision. If you're 65, but maybe you kind of late into the ministry or late to the UMC, and you only have 15 to 20 years of service time, well, you're age 65, you can retire under the normal retirement provision. Then there is early retirement. Early retirement is age 62 or 30 years of service. Again, or being the key word here. If you're age 60 with 30 years of service, you can retire under the early retirement provision. If you're age 62 with 20 years, again, eligible for early retirement. But there is some considerations that you'll have to be made aware of, which we'll talk about as it relates to the benefit you're going to receive from the Clergy Retirement Security Program's defined benefit if you retire under the early retirement provision. And we'll review that with you. There is the mandatory retirement age of age 72, and there is a 20-year retirement provision. So you can go and retire, let's say you're age 55, 58, you have reached the 20 years of service rule, and you're going to move on to for whatever reason, to wherever you're going to go. You want to move on, you're going to go into the 20-year retirement rule under the Book of Discipline. The thing to be aware of at that time is, if you retire under the 20-year rule, you have to wait until you attain age 62 before you can get benefits from your employer-provided plans and accounts. Your personal investment plan, your UMPIP, that's your account. That is available to you to decide how you want to treat that if you go into the normal retirement provision. But here we would say most definitely talk to a financial advisor, EY Financial Planning Services, your tax preparer, because you want to make sure that you understand any tax consequences that can be involved in using your personal investment plan account. But again, for the employer side, you'll be waiting until you attain age 62 to start to request and receive those benefits. With the retirement process, again, there's a retirement checklist that was provided to you in the email that I sent, but there's a few things to highlight. One is you want to register for benefits access. Hopefully all of you have already registered for benefits access. Even if you don't use it all the time, go on there periodically. It is good to do so. Every once in a while, we may make a modification or two to the platform, but it's good to get into the practice, again, periodically, of looking at your accounts, your account balances, how you're invested, ensuring that your contributions are coming in the way you expect them to be coming in, and all of that. If you have not registered for benefit access, we really encourage you to do so, because when you are going to be retiring and we get your intends to retire date from the annual conference, you'll be making your benefit elections through benefit access. In very few circumstances will we still go with the form orientation towards making those requests. Primarily now, everything happens through benefits access. So if you are retiring next year, you haven't registered yet, please do. But again, hopefully all of you have already registered. It's a very simple process to do. There's like 4 screens. You just got to fill out who you are. We authenticate back to you through an email, text, or a text on your phone. That number, we're all familiar with that, the way that works now. Just do all that, and then you go ahead and you are registered for benefits access. Each time you actually access benefits access, we're still going to do that authentication. So we have that layer of security in place as well. You want to verify that all of your personal information is correct. You want to make sure that your date of birth is there correct, your social security number, your address. You just want to make sure everything is correct and clean as it relates to you. But also, if you're married, you want to do the same with your spouse's information. Some benefits are life and survivorship benefits, so we have to make sure that all of that information that relates to your spouse is correct as well for the benefits to operate as efficiently as they should. So again, name is spelled right, date of birth, social security number, the address, all of that. You want to make sure that is in good working order. You want to check that your clergy service record is correct. Again, within a period of time, a shorter period of time, I think, but within a period of time, I will get you your clergy service record. But you want to make sure that it as well is in good working order, that it is correct. I mean, first and foremost, it's your ministry or it's your career, it's your time being spent in employment with the UMC. So you want that to really reflect what you have done. But also, certain benefits will use your service record or your service time in the calculation of those benefits or the determination of eligibility for benefits. So you want to make sure that that is correct. You're going to hear about using months and years of service when we calculate the defined benefit annuity in the clergy retirement security program. Anyone with pre-82, we're using years of service in one of the two calculations that we apply to determine what that benefit will be for you. Eligibility for the death benefit through the comprehensive protection plan, years of service. There may be other things that I'm forgetting about in the Wespath complex, but there may be other things just within the Oregon-Idaho annual conference that they're looking to determine, like service for the HRA in retirement. So they're looking at years of service in that as well. Then you want to verify your beneficiaries. Again, another use of the frame good working order. You want to make sure these are correct. That it's, let's just say your kids. The kids' information is correct. The current address is correct. Again, dates of birth, social security number, whatever that information is that we're looking for. You can find this on benefit access to how your current beneficiaries have been assigned. You know, if you're married, primary spouse, and then secondary children, but not married, it can be however you want that to work. If something tragic is to happen to you or you and your spouse, and the beneficiary designations are not in good working order, we're unable to then make the payments out to those beneficiaries. It will go to your estate. It'll go to probate court in whatever state that you live in, take years, cost money, and come out maybe not exactly how you intended that to be. So you just want to make sure that people don't find themselves in that situation. Just make sure that those beneficiaries are set up as you like them to be set up. As far as 2025, and I may have said this already, but within the context of how we framed the presentation, we use 2025 to use as our foundation. So for next year, those retiring next year, they will have to make their elections to receive benefits in July of next year. Those elections will have to be updated on benefit access by Monday, June 30th by 3 o'clock Central Time. So whatever time zone you're in, that you got to think about that. The way I'll frame that is 4 o'clock Eastern Time, because that's when the markets close. And when that happens, that's when the systems behind the scenes start running their routines. And one of those is going to be to sweep that pending file of benefit elections that have been made and start to process annuities, installment plan payments, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Again, with benefit access, you're verifying that your information and supplemental information is correct as well. We have tools on there where you can take a look at life stage retirement income. Somewhere down the road in this presentation, I'm going to go into detail on life stage retirement income, but we have modeling facilities there. If we get your intends to retire date on benefit access, you're going to see that graphic there on the screen. Hopefully that's coming through okay. Just a box under the word summary with a gentleman there smiling because he's going into retirement. And there's a link there. Those are the screens that you're going to be getting presented with to make your benefit election determinations. So that'll all happen through benefit access. You'll hear more about this, obviously, for those retiring this year and in subsequent years as we start talking about timeframes and requirements. This is a picture of our Wespath retirements team. We have our customer solutions area. And in our customer solutions area, we have a carve out of individuals. And these are these individuals who are our retirement team. They deal with our retirees. Going into a new year, the retiree class of that particular year, they are available to those individuals to help them navigate the benefit access screens, just to get more and more familiar with them, and even actually help them fill them in as appropriate. But they're always there once you're in retirement, through your retirement, to ask any questions that you may have, make any modifications to benefit elections that you made where you're permitted to make modifications to those benefit elections. They are there as a dedicated support group for retirees. And that's the picture of them right there, a great group of individuals. When you're thinking about retirement, and again, we're kind of getting back into the financial aspects, the income aspects, you want to make sure you understand your sources of income. We're going to talk about our retirement plans, the Clergy Retirement Security Program, the Ministerial Pension Plan, the Pre-82 Plan, We're going to review those plans and the different options that are available to you to receive income. But we're also going to talk about the voluntary plan, the United Methodist Personal Investment Plan, and how your participation in that is going to derive income in retirement. But certainly if you have other plans, when we talk about the UMPIP, you're going to hear that that's the plan where we have a rollover account available to you to roll over any prior employer retirement plans, qualified retirement plans, to bring into the UMPIP to consolidate all of your retirement accounts to maximize how you can derive income from those retirement accounts. Then you also want to be thinking through what is your spouse's sources of income. So your spouse may have worked for many years and decades and have a pension, like a teacher. Certainly there's a lot of still traditional pensions in the teacher world, or in corporate 401k, all of that. As you start to bring all of that in, Social Security, your Social Security, your spouse's Social Security, once you start to consolidate that all together, that actually helps to inform you in terms of what kind of benefit election options you want to make from the Wespath stuff, because you may have other things in your household that can kind of help you think through the best elections to make to receive income in retirement and then through retirement. So you want to understand how that all works together. So this might be my first time to give a shout out for EY Financial Planning Services. They are our partner who provide comprehensive household financial planning guidance to all of us at Wespath. So you have material on them in that email, and we'll talk about them. And we have a couple of slides as we're coming out of the presentation later on. And then again, what about your Social Security? You want to look and see your Social Security? What does early Social Security look like? What's the amount of Social Security, estimate going to look like at your full retirement age, age 66 in 10 months or age 67, whatever the case may be. And then also how that account looks for your spouse. So have your spouse go in and take a look at the benefits that are going to come from there. And then you can see what the impact is of the benefits and how half of yours would apply to the spouse, and the amount of income that you would receive individually, and then when you make it comprehensive in your household. How do we do that as far as the Social Security income is concerned? Go to ssa.gov and create your own My Social Security account. If you have not done so already, many people have already done so. We no longer get the Social Security estimates in the mail on an annual basis. They have it down to just, I think, the year you turn 60, the year you turn maybe 62, and then maybe some other years after that. So people more and more are raising their hand when we ask, when we're in the same room together, how many have already created these ssa.gov account, and many people have. So we encourage you and your spouse to do so. This one, you want to give yourself more like 10 minutes. The BA registration is pretty straightforward. But here, because it is your Social Security account with your Social Security number, as you're going through the registration process, you're going to get a question. Hey, in 1985, which of these 4 homes did you live in? In 1995, which of these 4 cars did you own? And they have that information. And they always have a none of the above as kind of a throw-in. So you just want to make sure that you give yourself some quiet time. It's not a scary thing. It's just you want to make sure you go through that effectively. Now we'll talk about the Wespath retirement plans. We're just kind of getting through the introductory type slides, but I'll just see, Bob, if anything has come up, any questions there may be, or any technical issues that we're working through or anything like that.
No questions at this point, Frank.
Okay,
Well,
great. Thank you much.
you're welcome.
All right, so we'll talk about the Wespath retirement plans. And we're talking about the road to retirement, and so we're on a journey. So on that journey, we have to have our map. And so here we have a simulation of the Google Maps. And we're going to have that journey kind of define itself by the various plans that you have participated in or may have participated in through the course of your time with the UMC, with Oregon, Idaho, other annual conferences within the context of plans. The first one that we are going to talk about is the current employer provided retirement plan, the CRSP or CRISP. As you can now realize, in the employee benefits world, we love our acronyms. I'll try to remember not to overuse them and continue to articulate what they actually stand for. But CRISP, CRSP, is the Current Employer Retirement Plan. This is a very interesting plan for Bob and I, who've been in this world, we can now say for decades. It's very interesting in that it's actually two retirement plans or two retirement arrangements in one. The primary one, the driver, is the defined benefit plan. It's a traditional pension. It's a formula benefit. You do not, it's not market dependent. And this is where we're going to talk about annuity elections and such like that. But there's also a defined contribution supplemental employer account that we're going to review, where it's an account balance where the employer is providing contributions to help supplement your retirement through the CRSP. So that initial one, the defined benefit, the monthly benefit, it is not a balance. If you look at your quarterly participant statement, you don't see any market value around a CRSP DB because it's not a market value there. It's not in the markets, right? It's a formula benefit. And what we do in the formula is we multiply three components together. The first is the denominational average compensation. I'm going to talk about a modification to that, but in general, it is looking at all full-time appointed clergy and adding up the compensation. What's the number of people that we looked at and coming up with the average compensation. And then there's a retirement factor. As you look at the Clergy Retirement Security Program and information on benefit access and other materials that you'll receive, your projection, what have you, you see two timeframes for that CRSP, 2007 to 2013, and then post-2013 or 1/1/2014 forward. When the CRSP first rolled out in 2007, this thing called a retirement factor in the formula was 1.25%. General Conference of 2012 reduced it to 1%. So that's why you see the two. And we're going to continue to illustrate and model along those lines. And then there is your credited service during that time period. So you have your full time period in the context of your ministry or employment or what have you. But when we look at your credited service, we're looking at it as it relates to that 2007 to 13 timeframe, post 2014 or 1/1/2014 timeframe. That's why you want to make sure that your service time is correct, because we're using that service time in the formula to calculate and derive the annuity benefit for you. So the denominational average compensation, again, it's putting everybody's compensation and deriving an average. For this year's retiree class, it was $78,292. For next year's retiree class, it's $80,297. But I'd like to share with you that as a result of General Conference, we have made a change to the calculation of this DAC on a year-over-year basis, where we are just going to increase it 2% per year ad infinitum, out into the future. 2% a year, 2% a year, 2% a year. Takes away the administrative burden of having to do all the calculations and accumulate all the data and all of that. But it's also a recognition of the broader activity in mainline denominational, in mainline Protestant denominations and Catholic, and the contraction that's happening there. Some of the activity that's happened in the last couple of years with this particular denomination. We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where all of a sudden that average starts to come back down. So we have it now so that it will go up 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. We have the retirement factor of 1.25%. Again, when the plan first rolled out in 2007 through 2013, General Conference of 2012's decision was effective 1/1/2014. And again, for the sake of our modeling today, June 30th, 2025, you have that 1% retirement factor. And now your credited service. We're looking at those timeframes. So for our modeling today, we're assuming full-time appointed clergy. It's 7 years. For January 1/14 to June 30, 2025, it is 11.5 years. So we have our three components: the denominational average compensation, the retirement factor. months and years of service. And now we're doing the math. We're multiplying those together. So that DAC is there, the 80,297. The factor of 1.25%, 7 years. We come up with an amount. We divide by 12, and it comes up with an initial amount of $585 per month. Now we look at the other second time frame, the 14 through 2025. We have the same DAC. We now have a 1% factor, 11.5 years. We multiply them together. We come up with the amount of 9234. Divide by 12. We get $769 per month. And then we add them together. So the initial calculation comes up with an amount of $1,354. However, your choices that you will make will impact your retirement income. You're going to hear about surviving spouse benefits and having a life and survivorship annuity and how that will impact the amount of income to be received. We have an annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, that gets attached to the annuity, and that annuity will go up by that percentage each year. For the CRSP plan, it has to be at least 2% as the cost of living adjustment, but you can go 2, 3, 4, or 5% as that COLA. And then the higher the COLA percent that you elect, it's going to impact the initial amount to you. But I have a graphical slide later on that shows you what the long-term impact of a higher COLA percent over the compounding effect over time to derive increased income later on in retirement. And then there's the early retirement, and I have a slide that will talk.
Okay, great. I'm just going to go. I believe Frank was right up to, he was talking about CRSP, the defined benefit, and the choices that you make are going to impact your retirement income, depending upon what annuity you choose. The survivor spouse benefit, you have 6 different options to choose from. They all provide you with a lifetime of income. They just pay differently. The COLA will impact, there was a minimum of 2% COLA for CRSP. And then early retirement, if you decide to go out under the early retirement provisions outlined in the Book of Discipline, your benefit would be reduced. It really depends upon how early your early retirement is. One of the tough choices is, what annuity do I choose? Okay. For a married clergy person, really the standard form of payment is a joint and survivor annuity. This lasts 2 people's lifetimes, and that really does provide some financial security, knowing that you're not going to wake up one day, 1 month, 1 year and say, oh no, my CRSP defined benefit stops. It continues as long as you do, and if elected at the time of your retirement, will continue uninterrupted. A percentage of it that you have elected uninterrupted for the remainder of your spouse's life. Things to think about when you make this choice, and this is a decision that's not revocable. Okay, so what really our job as benefit educators is, we want you to understand the 6 different annuities, not just the one that you choose, but the ones that you did not choose. So things you think about, your age, your spouse's age. I've talked to clergy that their spouse is significantly younger or significantly older. That could impact your choice. Family longevity. What is the history? Is everybody in your family living well into their 90s? How are you feeling? How is your health? How is the health of your spouse? I've talked to clergy who have told me their spouse is terminally ill or have some significant medical issues. That would impact the type of annuity that you choose. But also, what other sources of income will you and your spouse have available? Now, we mentioned early retirement will also reduce your benefit, okay? And it really depends upon how early that early retirement is. Frank had talked about the different types of retirements outlined in the Book of Discipline. And your normal retirement was age 65 or 40 years of service. So if you decide to go out early and commence your CRSP defined benefit, it will be reduced. The reduction might be very insignificant, or if it's like 62, it could be, a more significant reduction. The way it works, and I've talked to clergy that are like a month early, and I say, well, you have a choice. Do you want to receive a 0.5% reduction, or do you want to receive the $1,354 per month? So there is really a trade-off for that. In this example, this is going to be a age-based reduction. The clergy person is 63. They don't have the 40 years of service. Okay, if they did, we wouldn't be looking at any early reduction factors, early retirement reduction factors. So we're going to base it upon the age 2 years early, 0.5% per month, 6% per year, a 12% reduction. The benefit is brought down to $1,192. So they could look at a projection and say, hey, would I rather have the reduced benefit right now for the next 2 years, or would I rather wait and get the full $1,354? Now, that's the tough part. And we always tell clergy when we do retirement seminars and webinars in the spring that, that's a tough choice. And I always say, focus on the CRSP defined benefit component first, okay? The defined contribution is easy, okay? And you have more flexibility. I also tell clergy that are retiring, if you are age 65 or have reached those 40 years of service for normal retirement, you should take CRSP defined benefit, whether you need the money or not, because it's not going to get bigger. It's not going to get changed. And someone had asked me in the question box before I kind of flipped over to doing the presentation, they asked about the DAC and, how does the DAC work? You get the DAC in the year that you retire. So for those that retired, last July 1, 2024, they got the DAC that was calculated for 2024. If someone's retiring next year, we'll use the 2025 DAC. If you're retiring in the coming years past July 1st, 2026, when Compass is in effect, you'll get the DAC plus those annual increases. If someone decides to go out under early retirement, let's say this was a few years ago, under early retirement, and they wait, they're still going to get the DAC in the year that they actually retired, not the year that they commenced their benefits. Now, the account balance component of CRSP, it is an account balance. It's not a formula-based plan. You do see the account balance on your quarterly statements. And we do have participants that are self-managing the investments in CRSP DC, or you can use life stage investment management. When you reach retirement, it's available to you. This is your money. You can self-manage it. That means you could tell Wespath how much you want to take out. You could take partial distributions, full distributions. I like to think of these plans as designed for monthly income. You can include these balances in life stage retirement income. You can roll over this money directly into UMPIP, just consolidate it, and you really don't need to do anything with this money until you reach the required minimum distribution age. And for everyone here, likely that's going to be 73. For some of us, it's not going to be until age 75. And you might be thinking, well, Bob, I'm going to be well into it way before required minimum distribution age. Wespath will always follow that and notify you of when you need to start to take out distributions from these defined contribution plans. In the event you pass away, any remaining balances don't disappear. They would go to your designated beneficiaries. I know Frank had alluded to beneficiaries are so important to designate a primary and sole beneficiary. Often that's going to be a spouse. And you can also list contingent or secondary beneficiaries in the event that something happens to both you and your spouse at the same time. Let's move forward, and I'm just going to do double duty here and just check the question box to see if anything else came in. I had started to type that answer to the question, does the denominational average compensation lock in with the retirement year or change each year? It locks in with that year that you retire. So early retirement is going to lock in even if you don't commence your benefit. You're going to get the DAC in the year that you retired. So please keep typing in any questions as we go forward. Can you all still see the slides okay? if anybody just wants to
Yeah, I can
type.
say, yeah, I'm seeing them, Bob. I'm back, but I'm not trusting the stability of the platform right now, Bob.
Okay, yeah, Frank, that's fine. As long as you can see the slides, one big slide, and if you could, work the chat and the questions, I'll try to do this justice and carry forward with talking about the voluntary plan, the United Methodist Personal Investment Plan. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The car that we're on the road to retirement is actually the Ministerial Pension Plan, or MPP, which existed from 1982 through the end of 2006. And what makes MPP a bit different, but also in my mind from a plan design perspective, very similar, um, is that it is an account balance now. Nobody is self-managing their MPP account balance. Upon commencement, and this is exciting, you now have two different options with the 65% of MPP. For many, many years since I started in 2014, it was always MPP, 65% has to be annuitized, becomes this lifetime annuity for you, and if elected, continuing to your surviving spouse. At General Conference in May, and we've been waiting for this, it passed. And I wasn't surprised that it passed because clergy have been asking for additional flexibility with that 65% of MPP. So Wespath does listen. We had to wait for General Conference. It had to pass, which it did handily, and we implemented it, I think, very quickly. It was available for this past July 1 retiring class. So 65% of MPP is still going to provide a lifetime of income, but there's two different ways to do that. And then the 35% that's not annuitized or transferred over to life stage continues to be really a flexible account balance. Just like CRSP defined benefit, you have 6 annuity options to choose from. And there's no bad choices. There's just different choices. And I want to make clear that, the annuity option you choose, if you have both MPP and CRSP, the annuity option that you choose for MPP doesn't have to be the same exact annuity type that you choose for CRSP. They could be different. You could choose your life in 101, life in 70 in the other one. And that also goes to the COLA options. You could choose or remain with the 2% default COLA with CRSP and choose 3% in MPP. And that's what I like about when you go to the portal to make your retirement elections at some point. You can see right before your eyes the impact of a higher or a lower COLA. As a matter of fact, MPP allows you an additional option, a 0% COLA. And you might be thinking, well, who among us doesn't want an increase in our benefit every year? Let me explain in a little bit when we get to COLA. But with that 65% under option 1, okay, and I did a consultation yesterday, and I was explaining to the clergy participant that, 65% of your balance goes away, but it becomes this lifetime annuity for you and, if elected, your spouse. And when we say annuity here, we're just talking about a series of monthly payments that you can't outlive, and actually, as I mentioned, can last 2 lifetimes. Option number 2, brand new option, General Conference approved, is use that 65% to fund a one-time, not revocable transfer to fund life stage retirement income. It's going to be managed by Life Stage Investment Management, and you're going to be paid out in monthly installments with the intent to have an annual increase in those installments so that those balances last your lifetime. And that's really a great feature of LSRI. We call it Life Stage Retirement Income. It's the Goldilocks approach. It wants to prevent 2 tendencies: taking out your money too fast, not good, but also taking it out too slow is not good. And then that 35%, regardless of what you do with the 65%, okay, that 35% is going to continue to be exactly 35% of your account balance at the time of your commencement, will continue to be an account balance. What I see most often is the participant will simply roll that over directly into UMPIP. a consolidation of those account balances. So this really just summarizes, with the 65 monthly annuity lasting your lifetime, you live to be 103, you get it, or that transfer to life stage, and then that flexibility with that 35% account balance. Now, I'm going to show you an example of the MPP annuity. And I don't want anybody to write down these numbers and say, hey, that's great, that's what I'm going to get. Okay, this is just an example, but I'll tell you a little bit about the clergy person. 65, normal retirement. Spouse, 65. What's the balance, Bob? $400,000 exactly is in MPP. Not an uncommon balance, by the way, as you might know. What's the COLA? Well, in this example, they're going to go for the 2%, really the default COLA. And then you see, this is a married clergy person. So at first, we'll look at really what's considered the standard form of payment for a married clergy person is called a joint and survivor annuity, sometimes referred to as a life and survivor annuity. So you see that word in the annuity type, life, life, life. That's the lifetime of the participant. Upon them passing away, you'll see a percentage. That's the amount that will continue uninterrupted to the surviving spouse, 70, 85, or 100% of whatever that benefit has grown to with the COLAs. So if you're looking at these numbers here, and if you're like me, you say, well, Bob, just tell me what the highest dollar amount is. Well, on this graph, or this chart, I should say, is 1,235. So let's start with that one. It is the annuity type life and 70%. So you start off with 1,235. Every year it goes up with the COLA. You pass away, your spouse will get 70% of that amount. And so you could look at that amount and say, hey, that's not going to be enough. Let me also consider the life and 85% annuity type. And you'll notice quickly two things happen. The amount initially payable to you goes down, but a higher amount, a higher percentage now will continue uninterrupted to the surviving spouse. The third one you should also look at is the life and 100%. Again, the amount initially payable to you will decline, but now 100%, the same amount, what it has grown to, will continue uninterrupted to your surviving spouse. So those are the first, joint and survivor annuities. The next three, we call them SLAs, or single life annuity options. And you might look at these and say, hey, what makes these different? Well, there's only one column there. That's right, single life annuity. And these numbers are higher. They're higher. Why? Well, it's only providing a benefit for one person's lifetime. And we just don't know how long that's going to be. These three are really the standard form of payment for a single clergy person, but very much an optional form of payment for a married clergy person. And if you're married and choose a single life annuity option, your spouse would need to be aware of that. And not just aware, they would need to agree, consent, and waive their right to receive such a survivor benefit that they are entitled to. So they have to sign and get notarized a waiver understanding. And sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, the circumstances which was true. If your spouse, like the consultation I did with this clergy person, he told me his spouse was terminally ill and he was not aware of the single life annuity options. So he was thinking of getting the waiver, hoping that the spouse survives and lives and recovers, but kind of hedging the bet by getting them both, while they're both still alive, a higher monthly benefit. So if you look at the first one, that's the highest amount. And in my mind, there's not a big spread between the three of these single life annuities. There just isn't, not life-changing. So there's really not much risk with taking one of the 5 or 10-year options. I'll explain that. The highest one is the straight single life annuity option, $13.95. You live 33 years in retirement, good for you. You continue to get your payments with the COLA. Same happens though if you live 3 months in retirement and you die. Payments cease under the single life annuity option. The 5 or 10-year certain, I like to call it 5 or 10-year guarantee, same thing. It guarantees that payments will be made by Wespath for at least the 5 or 10-year guaranteed period and hopefully beyond. So quick example, I picked the 5-year guarantee. I got just a little bit less in this example, about $9 less a month, not a big deal. And I lived 23 years in retirement. Good for me. I outlived the 5-year guaranteed term. It stops. Let's say I picked I want to guarantee payments for 10 years, okay? And I die in 7 years. Wait a minute. The 10-year guarantee term's not up. Who's going to get the payments only for the remainder, 36 months or 3 years? Well, that could be whoever you have designated, including a spouse that waived their right to receive a joint survivor benefit. Okay, if that person you have designated upon retirement predeceases you, guarantee means guarantee. You would simply designate someone else. And that someone can be anyone. It could be boyfriend, girlfriend, mom, dad, brother, sister, neighbor, friend, church, because it's not going to be an indefinite amount of payments. So you have some flexibility there. So again, you pick one option here, but I want you to understand all 6 annuity types. You can choose a different annuity type, a different COLA. Frank, I'll pause for a second and just check for understanding and see if any questions have rolled in.
Oh, no questions have rolled in, but when you referenced another question from earlier, I'm not seeing that. So I'm not sure exactly what's happening, and I already had a couple of hesitations and spinning. So again, I'm not trusting the connection that I have right now.
Okay. One thing in the question box, you'll see like there's a way to hide the questions that are answered. Open questions.
Okay.
There's kind of a few tabs on top if that helps reveal themselves.
Okay.
And let me just shoot this one here. Let me send this one. Might free it up too. There's all
Okay.
questions. You'll see a tab for answered questions and then dismissed questions. There are no dismissed
Okay.
questions.
Okay. I see that. So there are no questions, but again, I'm still a little uncomfortable.
All right. Well, I will just continue. And that's
Please.
an important choice. That annuity type. I'm not trying to be dramatic about this, but it is important. It's an important decision that you need to make because it's not revocable. Let's say you're retiring July 1st. You can't call up Wespath in 3 months and say, "Hey, you know what? I messed up. I picked the wrong annuity. I picked the wrong COLA. Let's do this again." They're not going to permit you to do that. So it's a tough choice. You can work with the benefit education team. You can work with EY. I want you to make a decision that's right for you and your family, that's right for your budget, your lifestyle, your housing circumstances. So as Frank mentioned, there's plenty of help along the way from the annual conference, from the team that I manage that Frank's part of, and Cheryl and Todd, as well as EY Financial Planning Services, or you might have your own financial advisor as well. Okay, hopefully I didn't mess this up and you can see the COLA is an annual increase in your benefit. Okay, COLAs are important. Okay, COLA, cost of living adjustment. And I have seen pension plans in my long retirement career. I have seen pension plans that don't have a COLA. That's not good. We all of us are well aware of the painful impact of inflation. So plan designs that have a COLA built into them, I think are better designed because we all know by now that $1,000 a month today is not the same as $1,000 a month 5 or certainly 10 years from now, or it seems like 10 days from now. It's not the same. So the COLA is also an important decision. I mentioned in MPP, you can choose a 0% COLA. The default when you go into Benefit Access, the retirement portal, is going to be pre-checked for 2%. Doesn't mean you have to stick with that. You can choose the 2, 3, 4. You can go as high as 5. And my observation has been, and it's just an observation, this year and last year, I've seen clergy move off that 2%. Why? Because of their concern with inflation. Now, the question becomes, why doesn't everybody just choose a 5% COLA? Who among us wouldn't want a 5% annual compounded increase? Well, the fact is that the COLA amount that you choose will impact your initial benefit amount. And here's how. Let's just kind of plot on this graph the 5 different COLAs. And the first one is your default, that purple line, slow and steady 2% compounded increase until you and your spouse pass away. Continues, okay? So that's nice. It goes up, okay? Now the 5% COLA That's a significant compounded annual increase. That will bring your initial benefit down. But every year now it's going up 5%. You're clawing back every year. You're going to reach a point where you cross over. And even though you started out with the lowest possible benefit amount, you could easily, with longevity, end up with the highest amount. This would be a lot easier if you could tell Wespath, if you knew this, the exact date you think you're going to die and the exact date your spouse is going to die. It would be easier to make this decision. But again, think about those things like health, age of your spouse, health of your spouse, other considerations, what other types of retirement income. And then on MPP, we talked about a 0% COLA. And here's an interesting thing. A 0% COLA will increase, only for MPP, will increase your benefit. And sometimes I've seen $100, $200 or more a month increase, but your benefit's going to be flat. It's not going to increase, okay? So you're going to start out with the highest benefit, but later on with longevity, hopefully, you're going to end up with the lower benefit, but you got to enjoy those higher payments all along the way. And why? I will share with you what I've been told. Hey, Bob, I'm going to choose that 0% COLA just in MPP. Here's why. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for something else to come. Well, what is that, Reverend? Well, I'm waiting for Social Security. I'm going to delay Social Security for a while. I'm waiting for an inheritance. My spouse's great-great-grandmother is getting close, and there's going to be money coming, but we got to get there. Those are some of the reasons why I've seen the higher and lower COLAs chosen. And then the last one is the yellow and green, just tracks the kind of in between those two extremes of 0 and 5, the 3 and the 4% COLA. So I hope that makes sense. That too is not a revocable decision. So things to think about with MPP. Let's say a clergy person is looking at a normal retirement age 65. Okay. First choice is to do nothing with MPP. Easy for me to say. They might need income from that money right away, from that plan right away, but they don't have to do anything. You might recall this age, 70 and a half. That was around for years. That's when the government said, hey, you got to start taking something out of these plans. What plans? 401ks, 403bs, IRAs. They've raised that several times now with the Secure Act 1 and Secure Act 2. They raised it to 72. Now it's 73 for a lot of folks, depending upon when you were born, or 75, okay? Most folks, I think, will be well into it by then. Wespath will track that, but you do have that option. And it doesn't mean that the MPP balance is frozen because you're waiting. No, it's still invested, still earning, and hopefully growing. So think about that 65%. Again, two different options, very different. And you can comparison shop. You can see, well, what's the annuity going to give me per month, Bob? What is the life stage one-time 65% transfer going to give me? You can do all that on Benefit Access, determine those amounts, and make a decision. You can kind of mix and match this. You can say, hey, I'll take the annuity now. I'll just roll over the 35% and wait. Or say, no, I'll take the 35% now. Maybe I need a distribution from that for a housing down payment. So you can kind of mix and match this depending upon your situation. In my 10 years with the agency, I firmly believe that no two retirements are exactly alike. Every situation is different financially, emotionally, housing, budget, lifestyle. So it's good to have some flexibility here because it's really not one size fits all. And then other flexible distribution options with that 35%, including rolling it into UMPIP, taking a partial distribution, taking a full distribution, or full disclosure, rolling that 35% out of Wespath. We want to be careful with that, and I'll explain more about that. Certainly you're free to do that, but there are some tax consequences that you need to be aware of. So what is next up on our road to retirement? Oh, the pre-82 plan. Now, I'm not sure if we have any pre-82 eligible folks on this webinar. I'll go through it quickly. It's amazing to me, and Frank, that we still have every retirement season folks that will be receiving a pre-82 benefit. And, I just bless them and thank them for their long service and ministry to the UMC. And what we do with the pre-82 plan, it's kind of straightforward. It is a lifetime benefit. And if the clergy person is married, it will continue uninterrupted to their surviving spouse. We calculate the benefit 2 different ways. It's all fair and square. And we will always give the pre-82 participant the greater of the 2 calculations. Okay, it could be just a straight formula benefit, past service rate, multiplied by years and months of service, or we would use the defined benefit service money, annuitize, what that balance has grown to annuitize, and whichever one is greater, we will provide to that clergy person. There it is, the account balance converted to a lifetime annuity. And if we do use the DBSM converted to an annuity, we will continue to monitor your annual conference's past service rate. The day could come, potentially, it might not, where with increases to the PSR, that the formula benefit would be greater than the DBSM. We'll notify you and then simply just switch you over. And this is just an example of the 2 calculations, the DBSM based upon a $75,000 balance and the formula benefit based upon your conference, the Oregon Idaho's conference PSR, which, as you might recall, is usually voted on at annual conferences. Sometimes you see an increase in that amount. So what we're going to do here, we've done the calculation, 175, 175, 120. What should we do? Do we call you up and ask which one you want? No, we'll just automatically send you the higher one, and then we'll just monitor the PSR going forward. There's not a lot of annuity options here with a pre-82 lifetime benefit. If you're a single clergy person, single life annuity option only, no 5 or 10-year guarantee. If you are a married clergy person at the time of your retirement, okay, not a spouse you obtained in retirement, not a new spouse if you get divorced, nothing like that. It's the spouse at the time of your Episcopal appointment and retirement. Your conference, and each conference sets a survivor spouse annuity type. For you, it's life and 70% in your pre-82 benefit. Now the road to retirement continues to the voluntary plan. I am not clergy. Frank is not clergy. We both, though, are in this plan. United Methodist Personal Investment Plan. Many general agencies sponsor UMPIP, including Wespath. Again, this is an important plan. Even though it's voluntary, I would urge anybody, clergy or lay, that have access to UMPIP to seriously consider participating. It is and can be a significant source of additional retirement income later on. The retirement income really comes from different places. Okay, we used to years ago talk about a 3-legged stool, and I actually have a picture of a wooden 3-legged stool. Now it's more complex than that. You might have a 5-legged stool, a 6-legged stool, plus your spouse 7 or 8-legged stool, and you want to have a lot of legs and strength in those legs, and all the same height, or maybe some a little bit longer, but none of them wobbly. And this could be one of those legs. With this plan, you're making contributions now, okay? And depending upon how that money comes out of your paycheck will depend upon how it's going to be treated later on when you take it out. So this is a defined contribution 403B plan. The only way to get money in to UMPIP is through automatic payroll deduction. The government sets a limit every year, and it's high, and often it goes up every year, the limit that you could contribute, and then even a higher limit if you are or will be over the age of 50 in that particular tax year. These are the limits right now, and I always tell participants, clergy and lay, be in this plan. Okay, be in it for what you reasonably can afford. Okay, couple of questions I always kind of will ask, you should know if you're in the plan or not. You should know if something is coming out of your paycheck. You should know approximately what your balance is. I'm not saying you got to check benefit access every day, but you should be able to tell me, hey, Bob, I'm in UMPIP. I'm doing 3%. I'm doing it on a before tax basis, okay? And my balance is approximately $52,000. And Bob, I'm using Life Stage Investment Management. Or Bob, hey, no, I am self-managing my own account. I understand the investments. I understand my goals. I'm self-managing. So the limits are high. For those under age 50, it's $23,000. That's a lot of money. Again, put in what you can afford. If you haven't increased this in many, many years, maybe consider increasing, okay? You are allowed to change this. And this, I stress because often I've heard clergy tell me, Bob, they told me I couldn't change this until next year or next birthday or next appointment. Not true. You can change your contribution, not just the amount, but how is it coming out of your paycheck at any time. If you've reached or will reach the age of 50 in 2024, and you've maxed out on what I'll call the regular contributions to 23, you can, if you want, put in additional catch-up contributions up to an additional $7,500 for a total of $30,500. That's high. Now, it's not uncommon for me to see a clergy person late in their ministry getting closer to the finish line on the road to retirement, or really the beginning line too, you could look at that. And they're really, really putting in significant money. And I'll ask why. Why are you doing that? I see you putting in 30,500 or 26,000, whatever, big numbers. And often they'll say, well, Bob, I'm in the home stretch here on the road to retirement. Bob, I'm getting closer to the end here. And I couldn't do it earlier on in my ministry. I had seminary debt, and then kids came along. I had raising kids, and I had competing needs here for my paycheck. But now I can. Now I'm doing it. Now I'm getting closer. So just the key takeaway here is that it's flexible. You can change not just the amount, but how you're putting it in. The most common way we see money going in is a before tax contribution. I think it's about 8 years ago now, Roth contributions were added. So those are the two most common. It's always good, especially with Roth. I would never pretend I know enough about your financial situation to say, hey, everybody should do Roth contributions. Maybe, maybe not. What I can tell you, it's a good conversation starter with EY. Should I be doing Roth? Will I need, and can I take advantage of tax-free income later on? So real quick, before tax, what you're doing here is reducing your taxable income. You're holding everybody else off that's lined up for a bit of your paycheck, and you're saying, wait, you're going to be selfish for one moment. You're going to say, hey, I'm going to pay myself first. I'm going to put this money in the 403B plan. Then everybody else can have what's left. Okay, so you're reducing your taxable income. It's growing for you year after year after year, tax deferred. And what does that mean? It means that any income or interest you earn on your investments, any capital gains, any growth you experience on your investments, you are not required to pay taxes. You will not get a 1099 div form every year saying, hey, you made, like I get it from my bank, and I don't have a lot of money in there. Citibank, they'll send me out a 1099 in January. Happy New Year, Bob. Here's your 1099. You made $6 in interest last year. Don't forget to include it when you file your taxes. You could experience hundreds, thousands of dollars in earnings, in growth in your investments, and you're not required to pay taxes on that. It becomes taxable when you take it out later on in retirement. Usually, not always, you're in a lower tax bracket, so it really can be very advantageous for you. Plus, as a clergy participant, you have the advantage of the housing allowance exclusion in your retired status with the annual conference, and we will get to that in a few moments. Roth contributions, the way they work is kind of the opposite. Roth. It is a form of after-tax contribution, so you're paying your taxes up front now. It's growing for your tax deferred, and when the time comes when you take it out, if it is a qualified distribution, it's tax-free. Wow. Wow, think about that. Tax-free income later on, years and years of tax-deferred growth. And that's really, the earnings could be significant, especially for a younger person that's been in the plan for a long time. What does it take to be qualified? Well, a couple of things have to be in place. You got to be 59 and a half, okay? The first contribution, but not every contribution had to be made at least 5 tax years prior to the distribution. That goes quick. Also, in the event that you die or become disabled, it would be a qualifying event. So something to consider, something to discuss with EY. The word rollover. Rollover just means moving money in a plan. Rollover really talks to the portability of 403B plans, okay? Rollover is very, probably more common in corporate plans, 401ks, where people change jobs. And a rollover just means moving money from one plan to another plan. Maybe you're a second career or late to ministry. You had a previous employer's plan. Most plans, including this one, accept direct rollovers, just from one financial institution to another. Okay, it's not a taxable event. We do accept these rollovers. We do have rollover specialists at Wespath. It's a very common transaction. This would be kept as a separate source of money on your statement, and that's available for withdrawal even before 59 and a half if needed. Always, I think, when moving money, check with that institution, make sure, because you'll find very quickly that investment companies, not Wespath, investment companies are very reluctant to give up money to another investment company. Make sure there's no fees, redemption fees, back-end loads, anything fancy like that, restrictions. Normally, it's a pretty straightforward process, especially with 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. And also maybe just check with EY on that as well. The last one, we'll go through this quick because I don't want you to do this unless you've really considered fully the Roth and the before tax, is we do have and allow, and there's not a lot of it going on, is what I call a straight after-tax contribution. And you're paying your taxes now. It's growing tax deferred. So what's the difference, Bob, between Roth and after-tax? There's a big difference here. And if you were considering after tax, I'd say strongly, please consider Roth. The difference here is that the earnings that you've made on your investments all these years, when you take that out later, that's taxable, okay? You don't have to calculate that. Wespath will keep track of that for you, but still it's taxable, okay? Not the contributions, you've already paid your taxes on that, as opposed to Roth, 100% tax-free income if qualified. Now, as Frank had promised, we're going to cover a little bit about Compass, okay? This is for clergy. It's the new retirement plan, very exciting. We still have about, October, November, December, about 15 or 16 months before Compass will be up and running, okay? This was a long time coming. We needed General Conference to approve Compass, and they did. There was this discussion on it. It is really, it's a great plan. It's just a different plan than CRSP. A couple of things, and there will be a lot of information coming your way on Compass. I promise you that. There will be seminars, there will be webinars, there will be communications, there will be folks you can talk to. We're going to really have a robust communications campaign, and the benefit education team that I'm on will be very much involved in that. Right now, we're trying to give in pre-retirement sessions kind of like a little primer, a preview, if you will. Maybe you've heard bits and pieces on Compass. There's a lot of information on our website. I believe it was one of the handouts that Frank had emailed to you as well. First off, I want to start with retired clergy, because we do get the opportunity to talk to a lot of retired clergy groups or associations. Nothing's going to happen with your benefits, okay? Whatever you're getting will continue, okay? If you're getting your CRSP benefit, you retired last year, the year before, 5 years before, you're going to continue to get it in whatever COLA. If you're getting MPP, that's going to continue. Pre-82, that's going to continue. UMPIP. For active clergy, and this is the part I like. Nothing is going to be lost. Nothing is going to be taken away from your CRSP defined benefit or defined contribution plan. You're just come the end of next year, you're not going to accrue credited service every month anymore. There's going to be a cutoff. And then Frank talked about that artificial 2% increase in the DAC going forward. So that's pretty good, because let's say you have 10 years to go. You wouldn't want to look back on the 2025 DAC to do your calculation, and you won't be. Okay? So if you are on benefit access, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, hopefully you've registered, you do see an accrued benefit in benefit access, and every month that's going to go up. So between now and the end of next year, you can make a check mark on the calendar. Hey, my pension just went up because of that calculation we talked about. One of the three components Frank went into. I talked about the DAC, a factor of 1 and 1.25%, and years and months. Everything counts of credited service. So that's good news about what doesn't change. The plan design, though, boy, that does change. It's not a traditional defined benefit plan. Technically, it's a defined contribution plan. And you're going to be receiving, hopefully, and this is the important part of Compass that I want to stress. And we have annual conferences that are gearing up for this already because they're concerned. To make Compass work, a couple of things have to happen. You're going to be receiving what we're going to call, maybe we'll change the name of it. For now, we're calling it a flat dollar contribution, beginning at $150 per month and going up 2% per year in $5 increments. So that's just every month you get that flat dollar contribution. And then you're going to get what we call a pay dependent contribution. Okay. 3% of your compensation, they're calling it here pensionable pay. That term could change. 3% is going to go in. I like to call that, from a plan design perspective anyway, a non-matching contribution. You don't need to do anything to get it. Similar to the CRSP defined contribution, 2% non-match, doesn't require any action. This is going to be 3% of your compensation. And then this next one is critical. It's critical. We talked about the voluntary plan. The third one is a matching contribution, which is dependent on you making contributions, okay? I encourage everyone, if you're not doing 4% of your pay right now, try over the next 12 or 14 months to ratchet that up to 4%. Absent of that 4%, Compass is not going to work as well. The needle will be off. Here's why. Let's say you have a clergy person that's not contributing. Okay, that's an 8% hit because they're not putting in 4% and they're not getting a 4% match. So that is going to really mess this up, is the best way I can say it. So we're encouraging everybody, in any plan, I would say this, whether you're clergy or lay, your spouse, friends, neighbors, family, anybody in a 401k or 403b plan that has a matching contribution, take advantage of it. It's something you're not going to find at a bank or an investment company or a mutual fund company. So 3 different types of conference or church contributions, okay? It also has some important provisions in it, okay? How you take money out later on, okay? There is a spending phase, and that's done through life stage on the plan sponsor contributions. And it's also got a feature which I am really happy about that's going to help clergy, especially younger clergy that have significant seminary debt, student loan debt, help to treat those as if they were contributions so they don't lose out on that match. So let's talk about investing your account. Wespath benefits, we talked a lot about the benefits and investments. Okay, we are very much an investment company. Depending upon what day it is, it's about $26 billion in assets that we manage on your behalf. Whose money is that? Well, a little bit, very little bit of it is mine. It's yours. It's institutional investors. It's the pension plan. It's MPP money. It's UMPIP money. A lot of money. When I started at the agency, it was about $19 billion in assets. So it's really, really gone up over the last several years. For me, it's all about participants and what are we trying to do for participants. And I am proud of what we do on behalf of our participants. a couple of things I want to point out, toward the bottom, we're investing this in a very sustainable investing philosophy and practices that we follow up.
Excuse me, Bob, if I could interrupt.
Sure.
But yeah, but I'm struggling again a little bit here. But a question came in and I just thought I would just put it out there before you got into that next, okay? Question is, pensionable pay is base compensation plus 35% of housing allowance, and should that be parsonage? The pensionable pay is your cash compensation plus the full part, 35% of the parsonage allowance and any other housing allowance that you also may have. So it's like a total compensation type of concept. It's your cash compensation. We changed it through general conference from 25% of your parsonage to 35% of the parsonage. And then sometimes there's still an additional amount that could be housing allowance that would also be a part of the overall calculation of pensionable pay.
Yeah, and that's a significant change there, bringing it up to 35% more realistic. So, yep, exactly right. Thank you, Frank. So getting back to investing with Wespath and how we try to help participants. I like the style and philosophy. I like the ethical exclusions, things that we won't touch, things that we won't invest in. Diversified investment options, a full lineup of investment funds, everything from conservative to moderate to more aggressive ways to invest your money. We're not just trying to do this in a socially responsible, good way, but also we have a fiduciary responsibility to you to try to provide you with good, competitive investment rates of return over long periods of time. And we provide this with what I think are very low and competitive expense ratios. There are no sales charges. Sometimes they're called loads, front-end loads, back-end loads. There's no commissions on investing that you pay. Also, what's very meaningful to me and has been very helpful to me personally over the years is meaningful services like life stage investment management. Not everybody has that. The industry has changed from when I started, 35 years ago, where everyone was getting out of the defined benefit pension business long ago. And they said, we're going to switch. We're going to pivot to 401k plans. Here they are. They're important. Figure out how to invest the money. And that was a challenge for a lot of participants not understanding the investments, being afraid to make a mistake. Services like LifeStage have helped. 80% of our folks are enrolled in LifeStage investment management, and we still have a high percentage of utilization for the no direct cost financial planning services through EY. So a lot of good things going on at Wespath. I'm just going to walk you through briefly the investment lineup. And you might be thinking, well, why, Bob? Why are you talking about this? It's important. Whether you're self-managing or using LifeStage, these are our funds. This is our lineup. If you're self-managing, you're choosing among these funds. If you're in LifeStage, LifeStage is choosing an asset allocation for you based upon your LifeStage profile. And I'll go through them briefly in a very specific order, however, from conservative to moderate to more aggressive. And I'm only going to tell you 2, maybe 3 things about each fund real quick. What's the category? What is the goal? And then what security will it invest in to achieve that goal? And maybe if I can think of something interesting to throw out about the fund, I will. So on the slide, you'll see broad and purple or green, a broad category. Short-term income, or often referred to as capital preservation category. And just by those words, capital preservation, short-term income, what do you think the goal is? Safety. Preserve your capital, protect your principal. The fund is called Stable Value Fund. That tells you something. It doesn't fluctuate in value. It's designed to provide you with monthly income. It is really a very low risk fixed income bond fund. Pays you monthly interest. And whenever you hear income describing an investment, think about your paycheck. Your paycheck is called income. A fund that has income as a goal is doing just that, paying you regularly on a monthly basis. The next category, often called fixed income or bond funds, invest in a very particular type of security called a bond. Okay, stocks and bonds are both traded every day in the aftermarket. Okay, bonds are considered to be debt securities. Stocks are considered to be equity. You buy a stock, you own a little bit of that company. Stocks are considered equity or growth securities. Bonds are debt securities. You buy a bond from the government, a corporation, a municipality. You're lending them money. Okay, and because you lent them money, they're paying you back interest and then the value of the bond when it becomes mature. So even within that category, we can say you have conservative, moderate, and more aggressive ways to achieve income through bond securities. The Inflation Protection Fund invests in something called TIPS or TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protected Securities, which really provide you with a good hedge against inflation. You might see this come up in your life stage asset allocation. The Fixed Income Fund is a massive bond fund. It doesn't go out and buy one bond and say, okay, we're done. It's got billions of dollars worth of government bonds, corporate bonds, government agency bonds, municipal bonds, a very big, and they're all throwing off monthly income that gets passed along to you. The third one, the more aggressive of the bond funds, is the extended term fixed income fund. So the name tells you a little bit about it. You know it's a bond fund. Extended term means these are bonds, fixed income securities, debt securities with longer, what we call durations to maturity. Okay, those bonds pay higher rates of interest. What's the trade-off for that higher level of income you can expect? Well, it's going to be a bit more volatile, a bit more fluctuations. That's the trade-off in bond funds as opposed to a capital preservation. Now, the next one, commonly referred to as growth and income category, also called balance. Think of the scales of justice, a balance between two different goals: stocks for growth and bonds for income. MAF, multiple asset fund, is interesting. Life stage is not going to choose this for you. If you're self-managing, you can choose it, and your work is done. It's one-stop shopping, so to speak, because it is a fund made up of the other funds. As you can tell by the names, it's going to have a position, an asset allocation, 35% equity, 30% international, 25% that big bond fund, the fixed income fund, and then about 10% in the inflation protection fund. And what they do, they will keep those target asset allocations steady going forward. So two goals: growth, stocks, bonds, income. And then, a really important category in long-term retirement planning and investing is your equity stock funds, commonly called growth category. That's the goal, to make your balances grow in value over long periods of time. Within growth, we can say you have conservative, moderate, and more aggressive ways to achieve growth. Okay, the first one, and the name tells you a little bit about it. So it's a stock fund. U.S. equity tells you, hey, that's in the U.S. The first one we just added in July, brand new fund to the lineup. Very exciting news. Folks have been asking for this. Again, Wespath does. We do listen, and I'm glad they added it. It is considered to be a passively managed index fund. Okay, it's called the U.S. Equity Index Fund. And a passively managed fund, as opposed to an actively managed fund. In an active fund, you have fund managers, okay, investment professionals going out and buying and selling and holding certain positions, actively managing billions of dollars, that portfolio. In a passive fund, it's quiet. You get a list, and you buy exactly what's on the list in the exact weightings as the list, okay? An index could be the Dow Jones Industrial Average is an index of 30 large U.S. companies. You might have heard of the S&P 500, the 500 largest companies in the country. This is even a broader. S&P is 500. The Dow is considered a very narrow index. There's 30 companies, big companies. The index this follows is the Russell 3000. So it's an index of 3,000. You have large caps, some mid caps, and they're all different industries, minus the ethical exclusion. So it's not exactly 3,000. I don't know the exact number, but it's short of 3,000 with those exclusions. The U.S. equity fund, the next one down, is part passive, but a big part is also active. Massive, over $5 billion in assets, very diversified. It's got large capitalization companies, medium, small cap, many different industries, many different sectors of the US economy. If you look like I do on wespath.org, the investment section, you'll find quarterly updates. I always like to look at what are some of the top holdings that they're doing right now. NVIDIA, Microsoft, a lot of financial companies, technical companies, technology companies, a lot of companies that you recognize, but extremely diversified to help to reduce risk. And then the last one would have to be considered the most aggressive in your plan, the international equity outside of the US, purchasing stocks of foreign corporations. Yes, there is some additional risk you pick up when you go overseas. Currency risk, political risk, economic risk, all those things. But there are a lot of good opportunities outside of this country, and that's what international fund managers are trying to do, identify those opportunities, and they're smart. This fund has billions of dollars. They're never going to put all the money in one country, one region, or one particular industry. That would be too risky, but very, very diversified. So that's really what I call your core investment lineup. About 6 years ago, we added 3 additional funds, social values choice suite of funds, and that gives you an opportunity for those participants with a heightened focus on environmental and social performance, as well as exclusions passed by annual conferences. It's got all the traditional screening criteria, the ethical exclusions, 2 fixed income, and 1 equity, the social values choice equity fund. Right now, today, LifeStage will not choose those funds for you, but it is being put in place, and it should be available next year, that you can opt in to the social values choice suite of funds and have LifeStage choose them for you. Right now, they are available for those that are self-managing. This chart really just talks about there's a fundamental relationship between risk and reward with investments. And there's a rule, which I'm gonna tell you what it is, and maybe you can guess what the most important word in the rule is. The rule says, "Hello, everyone. The more risk you're willing to take with your investments, the higher potential you have for reward or return." Just think about those 2 words, risk. Well, that could be the possibility of losing money. Reward or return, the opposite, making money. And in that rule, the key word there is potential. The rule doesn't say take more risk, you get more reward. If that were the rule, we'll say, hey, okay, let's identify the most risky investment. We're always going to make the most money. No. But the good news is for investors and participants in these plans is that the rule works over longer periods of time. The rule might not work in a week or a month or a year to date or a quarter, but over long periods of time, supported by your performance page for your investments, the lower risk investments like the stable value and some of the less aggressive bond funds, that's where you've gotten your lowest rates of return. The moderate, the MAF, the extended term, that's where you've gotten returns in the middle. And then where you've been mostly rewarded long-term is in the growth, the equity, the stock category. So really interesting to understand the relationship between. And you might be here on this webinar because I can't see you and just saying, Bob, keep going. I'm not that interested in the investments. I'm using LifeStage. LifeStage is taking care of that for you, and that is a true statement. LifeStage helps everybody. Not everybody, but about 80% of everybody. If you're not sure what to do, you can always confer and get guidance from EY to help come up with your own mix of investment funds, your own asset allocation, maybe taking into account outside investments that you and your spouse might have. That old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If somebody is self-managing, I don't want to see anybody walking around the church ground say, Bob, I'm going to go 100% international with everything I have. I'd say, be careful with that, Reverend. Why? You said it's a good fund. Well, no, I didn't say that. I said it's an aggressive fund. Be aware of the additional risk. By putting all your eggs in one basket, there is additional risk. But nor would I want to see anybody walking around saying, Bob, I'm going to go 100% stable value and do that for the next 30 years. I'd say, why? Well, you said it's a safe fund. Well, I said the goal is safety. I didn't say invest all your money in it for 30 years because now you're making it very risky. But I'd rather see a self-manager come up with a reasonable asset allocation based upon their goals. Diversification helps to reduce risk. Don't put all your eggs in one basket in any particular period of time. Sometimes stocks will outperform bonds more often than not. You could have time when fixed income is outperforming stocks, international, US, longer term, shorter term bonds, all returning different rates of return at different periods of time. So use life stage. It is really setting your account on autopilot, taking that burden for some of us. That's the challenge, understanding the investments, monitoring them, rebalancing them. Life Stage does this all for you. It is a terrific service. MPP, Ministerial Pension Plan, those account balances, pre-annuitization have to be managed by Life Stage. Your defined contribution, later on, if you roll your 35% of MPP into UMPIP, you can self-manage. Life Stage will come up with a target asset allocation. It will monitor that on an ongoing basis. What goes into your life stage asset allocation? Well, a couple things. Your age is very important. When do you expect to retire? Tell your profile this information. Are you eligible for Social Security? And what is your risk tolerance? You can set this at conservative, moderate, and aggressive. If you're currently, you might be seeing yourself, you have a moderate risk tolerance. It's possible you are in life stage and not even aware of it, and you're not even aware that you have a profile where you can make adjustments. If you're currently set at a moderate risk tolerance and you are interested in seeing what aggressive or conservative would look like, right on Benefit Access, you can model and see, hey, if I go from moderate to aggressive, here's the difference in the pie chart, the asset allocation. It's going to likely give you more exposure to the growth funds. This is just a quick example of what I think is the most important feature of Life Stage, the rebalancing feature. It comes up with this target asset allocation, that pie chart, and it's normal and natural for things to drift, for the growth funds to grow, for the bond funds to pay off income. So when there's a certain amount of drift, Life Stage will rebalance you back to that target asset allocation. So every once in a while, I'll talk to a clergy person and they'll say, hey, Bob, I got my statement and I'm looking at this and there's transactions that happened last quarter and I didn't do anything. I say, well, let's take a look, Reverend. Look at this. Look at this. You're in Life Stage, and that was simply Life Stage investment management rebalancing your account for you as it should. So that's really pretty cool. Looks like Frank has dropped off. So I'm just going to take a quick peek in the question box, see if anything came in. Looks like we do not have, nope, I don't see any open questions. Hopefully Frank will be able to get back in. So let me just close that out and move forward. Okay, lots of information available on our Wespath site, wespath.org. These are daily valued funds that every day that the stock market is open, your account balances, the securities, the value of the securities will be added up and your balances will be calculated. So don't drive you crazy, self-crazy checking your balances every day, but you can, and you'll see a change. Okay, descriptions of the funds are in there. That's where I got my information from. Investment performance is in there, benchmarks, what we compare our investments against, and any investment management fees are also listed there. Now, for your defined contribution account balances, when you reach retirement, okay, these are all designed to provide income, monthly income for you in retirement, but there's different ways to approach this. Again, every situation is different. You could get to retirement, have hopefully significant balances. My personal preference is to take it monthly. Okay, not to take, you can cash out all your account balances day one of your retirement, cash it out. Not a good idea from a retirement planning, financial planning, certainly not, or tax planning, not a great idea, but you can, it's available. Okay, partial distributions are also available. You can self-manage your money. And I cannot stress enough, this is your money. It's not mine. It's not Wespath's. It's not anybody but you. And if you're married, often you're going to see the spouse designated as beneficiary. You can self-manage it. And that's just a fancy way to say, tell us what you want. Look at your balances, look at your lifestyle, look at your budget, look at your housing cost, and come up with a reasonable amount that you want directly deposited on a monthly basis. And you tell us, hey, Wespath, send me $2,000 a month. Along the way, if you need a partial distribution, the rest of your money is not frozen day one of your retirement. No, it's still working for you, self-managed or using life stage. So partial, full, life stage, self-managed. Continue to maintain those beneficiary designations even in your retirement. Don't get worried about RMDs. You can scan it here. We have a great RMD brochure, but we take that very seriously, like other financial companies, and we'll notify you if you're not taking out enough to satisfy the RMD, the required minimum distributions. We will notify you. Most folks that I see, or if you're using LifeStage knows how old you are, and it will take out enough to satisfy any required minimum distributions. Now, the other companion, often confused with LifeStage Investment Management, is LifeStage Retirement Income. This one we have an acronym for, like we do everything, LSRI, LifeStage Retirement Income. And what this is, the easiest way I could explain it, it's the basic LSRI is a calculation service. It looks at your balances, it looks at your age, the age of your spouse, it looks at mortality tables, it has assumed investment rates of return going forward, and it calculates an amount that we can send to you on a monthly basis so that these balances last your lifetime. And when they do the calculation, they're never going to give you the most they could or the least they could. They'll give you somewhere in the middle within these payment safety guide rails so that they can make adjustments with the intent to give you an increase in that monthly amount every year. They'll recalculate it, like for everybody in LSRI next month, November, they'll recalculate it, look at it, check if you're still alive, and then adjust it beginning January. You can expect an increase. So the basic service, you're not locked in. You could put money in it. You could get out of it. And really what it's trying to do, everyone on the webinar, what it's trying to do, I think, is important. It's trying to stop the tendency to taking this money out too fast. And I've seen that firsthand, and it's not good. But also the other tendency I don't like, taking it out too slow. I know I've met a lot of people that, they work hard, they sacrifice hard, they put a lot of money in these plans, and when they get to retirement, they do very little with the money. They sit, they wait, and that used to end at 70 and a half. You had to start taking something out. That's been extended to 72, 73, 75. And then, they get to a point and they pass away, and there's a lot of money left. Who gets it? Well, the spouse often. And there are certain rules for the spouse to take out that money too. And if they take it out slowly too, it could end up getting passed along to that spouse's beneficiary. Often that could be children. And I fully understand, because I've talked to a lot of clergy, particularly this year, that have adult disabled children. That might be your plan. Okay, but it might not be the best plan. I would always suggest call EY and discuss that. So what LifeStage is trying to do, again, the Goldilocks approach, take it out just right. Pay you monthly income from your balances until they send you the last direct deposit, and then you peacefully pass away. That's what it's designed to do. There could be no assurances. If you live to 120, it'll be able to do that, but that's what it's designed to do. There is a modeling tool in Benefit Access where you can model what LifeStage would provide for you based upon putting in certain amounts of money. But then LifeStage, once you're set up, it'll start to send you that monthly direct deposit. It wants to give you flexibility. It wants to give you choice. You're allowed to transfer between UMPIP and LifeStage at any time. Sometimes things come up unexpectedly in retirement, as you might be aware, and you are allowed to take out an account balance from your account balance if needed. Now, you also do have some optional, customizable features that were added 2 years ago to Life Stage. And I think that they're important for a couple of different reasons. And I'll explain. One has to do, we call it a Social Security bridge. And you might be aware of this. Financial planners have been talking about this for a long time. Everybody has an FRA, a full retirement age for Social Security. Okay, my FRA, I'll tell you, is 67. You might be 66 in 10 months, 66 in 6 months, 66 in 8 months, 66 in 4 months. Okay, everyone's got an FRA. That's when your benefit is not going to be reduced. So if you take it before your FRA, they're going to give you a reduction in your benefit, depending upon how early the early is that you're taking it. But they also reward you, the Social Security Administration. If you go beyond your FRA, you get what's called delayed retirement credits. And the way that works is every month that goes by, they say, all right, 0.2% increase. Every year that goes by, 12 times 2/3 is 8% increase. If I wait till 70, that's when delayed retirement credits for all of us will cease to exist. I could get a 24% increase. Now, what's the trade-off? Well, the trade-off in that story is that I gave up 36 months of payments from the administration, but I'm getting a much bigger benefit. Again, if we knew exactly how long we're going to live, that would be an easy decision. So what I'm getting to here with this, if you build a bridge with Life Stage, and that just means you tell Wespath you're going to do this. You tell Wespath, hey, I'm going to wait till 69 and a half. I'm going to wait till 70. That bridge can be the full bridge or a little bit shorter. But the point is you're telling Wespath you're going to build a bridge. You're putting in an estimate of your Social Security benefit at the end of the bridge. Wespath says, hey, this is great. We can give you more of your money now because we know something's coming later on. And then we can adjust down the amount coming out of your remaining balances. So you could probably build the bridge on your own, not let us know. If you do opt in for this and then decide to jump off the bridge and take Social Security earlier than you had told us, you would just pick up the phone, notify us of that, okay? Notify us that you're beginning Social Security, they'll cancel it, and you'll be on your way. We understand that life happens sometimes along the way. So I think it's an interesting option. It helps people. It helps people not have to make unnecessary sacrifices early on because they're concerned about the future levels of income that they're going to have. Now, the other optional, customizable, certainly, feature is what we call LIP, longevity income protection. This is a little bit different. This is what we call a deferred annuity, meaning, and we talked about annuity as a stream of payments that last your lifetime. Well, the deferred part means you're not going to get that right away. You're going to get it deferred until you reach the age of 80, that milestone. Okay, we partnered with Pacific Life, and believe it or not, there are awards for plan design for retirement plans, and this is all won an award from Pension Investment Magazine, very prestigious. So we're real proud of that because it helps participants, and that's what I'm all about. Okay, this might not be right for everybody. Okay, I firmly believe that if you not so much with the bridge, but it might be a good idea, but certainly with the longevity income protection purchasing, and that's what you're doing. Money is leaving right now to purchase a deferred annuity, a benefit you'll get at an advanced age of 80, that milestone. But I do think it deserves a call to EY to discuss your financial circumstances. But it can help really guard against the risk of outliving your money. This longevity protection is what it's trying to do. And the annuity is based upon group insurance rate. So you're paying money now for a future benefit later on. Things to think about. Again, your health. How is your health? How is the health of your spouse? How old are you? How old is your spouse? What other sources of annuity income will you have available to you? And some of you will have annuity income available right here through these plans that we've discussed. So to illustrate it, I think this is a good illustration because it points out these milestones. You've reached the age of 65. Congratulations. you're retiring. Life Stage says this is wonderful. I can give you this much. The concept is more important than the exact number. I can give you this much from your consolidated balances. You hit the next milestone, age 70, delayed retirement credits cease to exist. Life Stage says, you've told me, now you're going to get Social Security. Good. Boom, that kicks in. Life Stage can adjust down, take out less money from your account balances. And then if you elected for the optional longevity income protection, the next milestone, age 80, that LIP kicks in, additional lifetime income. Social Security has continued, and they do have COLAs. They just announced the COLA for next year. And then Life Stage can give you less of your money. But the intent here is an increase in that income between those different milestones. So again, to think about it, especially for the longevity income protection, health issues, family longevity, if you've opted out of Social Security or commenced Social Security, there's simply no bridge to build there. And again, we mentioned, you might have other sources of annuity income from MPP, for example, and from CRSP defined benefit. We do have a really great required minimum distribution booklet available to you. But the takeaway here is that Wespath will track this very, very carefully for you. We will, because it's important, because even though with the Secure Act 2.0, there used to be, and it's still not good, but there used to be a 50% penalty if you didn't take out the RMD. That's harsh. So if you were supposed to take out $8,000 and you didn't, that would be a $4,000 penalty. They've reduced the penalty, but nonetheless, it's still a significant 20% penalty. Wespath will keep track of that. Again, most participants that I see are well into it by then. But this is real quick, depending upon what year you were born, I fit in over to the right, my birthday being after 1959. So I guarantee I'll be well into my retirement income by the time I hit age 75. For some of you here born between 51 and 58, it would be age 73 for the required minimum distributions. We talked about ongoing payments from like MPP, CRSP. You can voluntarily elect to have taxes withheld from that. You might not need to, depending upon the extent of your housing allowance exclusion, but you can't opt out of withholding on partial or full distributions, okay? Not a penalty, but kind of like a credit, a prepayment of taxes that are going to be due. So if you take a partial or a full distribution, we are required to withhold 20%. If you are going into RMDs later on, you're just going to take the required minimum distribution. Not sure why, but that is only required to withhold 10% of those amounts. If you are retiring next year, and this happens every year, a lot goes on at Wespath. Thankfully, I'm not involved. At the close of business, June 30th, a lot, millions and millions of dollars is being annuitized or transferred over to LSRI. Pension payrolls are being set up that last people's lifetime. So there's a lot of checks and balances and controls and good work that's being done at Wespath to get you set up as fast as possible. Expect a delay in your first payments. We often always run into the July 4th holiday, and it is anticipated for July 2025. Your first direct deposits will hit around July 7th. Going forward, it's on serve, and you're going to receive your payments either the second or the third, deposited separately, the account balance payments and the lifetime payments deposited separately. But, I talk to a lot of retirees sometimes at an annual conference. I'll bump into them. They'll come over to the table and say, "Oh, Bob, thank you. I've been retired 10 years and thanks for sending the money every month. It's there like clockwork." And that's just, wonderful to hear that it's working. Certainly you can change your bank information, but you can't change that annuity or that COLA that you chose. Now, next item, and I'm not sure if Frank is there, if we provided with all with a housing allowance exclusion worksheet, but we can certainly get that to you in the follow-up. Frank, if you're there, any questions have come in? Oh, there you are. Good.
No additional questions have come in that I've seen, but again, I got knocked out completely. Took me a while to come back in. And so I may have there may be questions that I'm not seeing on this dialogue box. So Murphy's Law, has kicked in today.
Okay, Frank, just tell me, should I keep going? Do we have any scheduled breaks, or we're gonna take them right up to lunch?
Well, so at this time, so sorry folks, but with Bob and I are planning at this time, there is the completion of this, a 15-minute break. I made the recommendation to Meg that I would record the VIA benefits
Terrific.
piece, because again, I can't trust it here because of the, it was on me and in your preparation time and all of that. So that's kind of a contingency that I'm working on now. Then there was going to be a lunch break. I think I sent you the agenda earlier, a lunch break. And then there was going to be other individuals coming in this afternoon, Social Security, and I think maybe Chip or something. So off the top of my head. So
Okay.
that's where we are now. So as we get through this, then there'll be a break, and then we can game plan
Very
and
good.
then continue on for the day.
Okay, very
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
I know you sent out an email to everyone. Did it include a housing allowance exclusion
Yes.
worksheet? Excellent.
Yes.
Folks, if you have that handy and can bring that up, we're going to talk about no other way to say it, a significant, important tax break, tax benefit, whatever you want to call it, for retired clergy of the UMC, and other denominations take advantage of this tax break as well. Now, imagine this to be in your retired status with the annual conference. You're retired. Congratulations. Thank you for your ministry. You've made it. Okay. You're receiving income from Wespath. What are you talking about? Well, MPP, CRSP, UMPIP, if you've been in ministry a long time, maybe a pre-82 benefit. I don't care. It's income. All consider it income. Some of the income, at least some of it, I would imagine, in many cases, a lot of it, and in some cases I've seen even recently, all of it can be excluded from taxation because of this housing allowance exclusion in retirement. Now, you might be familiar with, in your active ministry, keeping track of housing costs. You might be familiar with fair rental value. Here's how it works. And I've only been through about 10 or 11 retirement seasons, and it's always the same. At annual conference, it gets voted on. Hey, 100% of what comes out of Wespath is allowed to be excluded from taxation. Doesn't mean it will, but it's allowed to be. Well, how much, Bob? Well, it depends. You have to come up with 3 different numbers. I like to call them considerations. What is the amount designated as a housing allowance? You can generally get that. You can get a printout from the journal or a copy of it if you need to substantiate this, but that comes from the annual conference, a resolution. The second one is, what is the amount I actually spent on housing for my primary residence? The housing allowance exclusion worksheet that Frank sent you, it looks like a tax form. It's not. It's a worksheet. You don't need to submit it with your taxes, but it's good to have that. And I would say, hey, make a bona fide, legitimate attempt, even in retirement, to keep track of housing costs. It doesn't matter if you're renting a home, an apartment, you have a condominium, a co-op, retirement home, living in a mobile home, a trailer, lake house, wherever your primary residence is, you're likely to have expenses related to that housing. Rent, mortgage principal, mortgage interest. If you're like me out here on Long Island, real estate property taxes, I'm sure you have those out west as well. You're going to have utilities, maintenance, electricity on such property, and vaguely described as other applicable expenses related to housing. So you want to make a good attempt to track housing cost. And then the third consideration is, what is the fair rental value of your primary residence? If I came out there and said, hey, I'm going to rent the place, you got to get out, and when you charge me rent, include your furniture and utilities and maintenance on such property. Come up with a fair rental value. I don't know how I would do that here, but I know a lot of real estate people in my town, and they would be coming over, tripping over each other to come here and look and give me comparables in the area and say, Bob, I think this modest house would rent for X number of dollars per month. That's what clergy have told me they do. One clergy person says, I have that real estate person back every July 1st and take a look again, because I want to be fair, the F in FRV, fair rental value, is very important. So when you get those three things together, the exclusion to determine it is easy. It's the least of those three. So we have this Reverend John Waters, okay? He's receiving $2,000 a month from Wespath. From where? Doesn't matter. MPP, CRSP, UMPIP. He has a 100% is designated, allowed to be excluded, but he only spent $20,000 actual on housing, and the fair rental value came out to be annually, this is $21,000. So if you look at the three numbers, the exclusion is the lowest of those three, which is the $20,000 taken from the 24. The amount taxable is $4,000. That's a significant tax break. I have seen some clergy, whether you have a mortgage or not, sometimes the mortgage is paid off. Other times they're just starting with a mortgage, first-time home buyers at 65. It is important to take advantage of this. I know years ago, and maybe still, it was challenged in courts. Wespath partners with other denominations in the Church Benefit Alliance, or CBA as we call it. We will fight. We have lawyers. They have lawyers. We will fight to maintain this. I don't think it's been challenged recently. Some atheist groups have challenged it. It was upheld. Again, other denominations take advantage of this as well. It is available to retired clergy, does not continue to the surviving spouse of that clergy unless they happen to be clergy as well, a clergy couple. Only available for your primary residence. So if you've got a summer house or a lake house, just use this on your primary residence. And we suggest you attach a note on your federal return, your 1040 return. And on the back of your housing allowance exclusion worksheet, toward the bottom, I don't have one with me, but toward the bottom, it basically says, on my tax form online, whatever it is in a particular year, it changes. I have excluded $20,000 from income under section 107, I think it is, of the Internal Revenue Code. As a retired UMC clergy person, I am entitled to take this deduction. Thank you. And then, put that on, whether you file electronically, you can usually attach a note, or if you're filing a paper form, just type up a note or write up a note, just so if anybody, and I doubt anybody will actually be looking at your return with a pair of eyes, but if they do, they'll know you mean business when you quote the section of the Internal Revenue Code and kind of point out what you've done here. You don't need to submit any receipts or that housing allowance exclusion worksheet. So just really, I think, an important and significant tax break. Death and taxes, we're going to go a little bit into disability now. CPP, the Comprehensive Protection Plan, and I believe Frank would have given you a complete schedule of the benefits. I urge you to hang on to that and review that, okay? There are some provisions to determine if you're eligible. Frank talked about, service before, how we use your clergy service record to determine eligibility for some plans, to calculate benefits in other plans. Okay, mandatory participation for eligible clergy. Okay, if you're serving full-time and your compensation is at least 25% of the DAC. The plan sponsor, the annual conference, can also elect to cover 3/4 time clergy. And if you're not eligible, if you're appointed half-time or quarter time. There are both active and retired clergy death benefits. I don't have a copy of the CPP in front of me, but if you do get that from Frank, just take it, print it out, and hang on to it. There's also a very important spousal death benefit, and then a surviving spouse death benefit. There is a benefit in the unfortunate event of an eligible child passing away, so surviving child benefits. And there's also a minimum surviving spouse retirement benefit. So some really important things. No one wants to think about death and taxes until it becomes necessary. But hang on to this CPP schedule of benefits for 2024. There'll be another one coming out next year in a couple of months for 2025. In order to be eligible for retiree death benefits, okay, you have to be enrolled in CPP for at least 12 of the last 15 years or had active participation in CPP for 25 years. Okay, this is, it's actually in here, some of the harmonization of death benefits, as they call it. For active participants, it's the maximum allowed that it doesn't become taxable for IRS purposes of $50,000 for the clergy person passing away. And these used to be tied to the DAC. They're not. They're just flat dollar amounts now, which is good. The retired participant, $24,000. For active or retired spouse, $16,000. Surviving spouse, $12,000. And eligible child, $8,500. Okay, there's also a disability component of CPP. And, obviously, that's a tough situation when you become disabled. Okay, we do have a really great disability area within Wespath, within our customer service area, and they really are experts at this and will guide you through it. Okay, the disability amount is 70% of your prior to the disability plan compensation. So that's housing plus your cash salary. You can't be enriched by a disability program. So your plan compensation is not to exceed 200% of the DAC. And there's also a Social Security offset of $1 for dollar. Okay, this is an imputed offset to those that have opted out of Social Security. And there's no offset if you don't have enough quarters or you're medically denied for the disability coverage. Please refer to that complete schedule of benefits, probably for a better description than I gave you. Frank had mentioned EY a couple of times, and Frank and I work very closely with EY. I've had the opportunity to go out and do some Wespath training when we have plan changes for EY. They have 2 call centers, one in Tampa, Florida, hope they're doing right, and one in Secaucus, New Jersey. And, I call EY a lot. I've taken almost every CFP class. I still call them to bounce ideas off them to see if what I'm thinking is reasonable. They truly love getting calls from our participants. One financial planner told me, Bob, I get so many blessings and prayers. I love working with your participants. It doesn't have to be just Wespath related topics like CRSP or MPP or later on Compass. No, it could be more complex financial planning questions like, how much can I afford for housing in retirement? What will my income look like with all these different sources that are available? Should I take MPP? What annuity? It can give you guidance on what annuity, what COLA you should choose. And there's different ways to do this. What is the best way to secure down payment for housing? Should I use the loan option that's available, not a distribution? That loan option has helped our retirees. Should I use the loan option, or should I consider taking a partial distribution? If you need to buy a car, you don't know whether you should finance it or lease the car, call EY. If you're buying a home for the first time, call EY. If you're trying to reduce debt, call EY. They can help you come up with a strategy, a plan for reducing debt. The benefit education team has been doing virtual, private, confidential, secured consultations since March of 2020. It's been an outstanding program. Typically, it's aligned with either an on-site seminar or a virtual webinar like this. If anyone is interested in meeting, these are 30-minute intervals, unlimited, and I assure you, very, very confidential. That's a picture of Todd Curveston, who's on the benefit education team. They're 30-minute sessions. They always go 30 minutes. It's a discussion. We can share the screen. We can run benefit projections for you, look at your benefit access, show you your life stage profile, help you. That's what we're there for. We can help you. We can answer your questions. It doesn't have to be, in the months before you're retiring. It could be young, old, or in the middle. There's a link to sign up for the consultations. And, it's not like a doctor's office where you have to wait months. Matter of fact, you can't sign up for a consultation next February. We haven't posted them yet, but you can in October, you can in November, and we'll continue to roll out once I know where everybody is going to be and who's going to be available. So just a wonderful program, unlimited program. Okay, a couple of things to think about. I always worry about folks that haven't registered for benefit access. We talk about engaged participants, and for me, a participant that's engaged is one that understands their benefits, takes advantage of their benefits. has registered for benefit access, has been on there, who reviews their quarterly statements, who knows if they're contributing, who has current designations of beneficiary, both primary and secondary, knows where those important phone numbers are for EY and for Wespath. Okay. Think about your UMPIP as a good takeaway here. You know, when's the last time you changed it? How much is coming out of your paycheck? How is it coming out of your paycheck? You know, I had talked before about maybe calling EY to see if Roth contributions are a good idea. Take a look at your life stage profile. If you're not even sure you had a profile, take a look. It's in the accounts section under life stage investment management. You can look at your profile. You can change or update your profile if you have an idea of when you might want to retire or you want to change your risk tolerance. The benefit projection tool is getting very close to being ready. When I say that, I am excited. I hope it shows because we've been waiting for it to include Compass, okay, beyond January 1st, 2026 for those retiring after that date. So real close on that. I know Frank is going to follow up with those projections, but you can run different scenarios on benefit access, different ages, different UMPIP contributions. So make those calls and schedule those consultations with the benefit education team. Plenty of help along the way, especially if you're retiring. I love that photo Frank had shown of the retirement team. These are the folks that really make it happen. We can help you a lot, but they can go to places and do things that we are unable to do or fix, especially if you're having trouble registering or getting into benefit access. They can reset you and help you along the way. And then we have the biggest area of the 300-person agency that I work for is our participant solutions or customer service area. About 100 folks work there on your behalf, accepting contributions, doing the billing for the conferences, taking thousands of calls every month from you. So continue to utilize them. They truly are a caring bunch, and we are a caring agency, caring for those who serve. So at this point, I'll just take a look to see if there's any additional questions that have come up. Let me just see if I can get out of here.
It's related to someone who had registered after I had sent that initial one. So yes, I'll go through the registration list and make sure everybody who registered gets that same material as soon as I'm able. And then
Okay.
the follow-ups will all go out to that same email list that we have in the entirety right now.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, the one person that indicated they had registered, I think, just very late, and
Yeah.
we'll get them the materials for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's been great. I'm glad we had a backup plan in place, Frank, as we do in benefit education. We have to anticipate things can go wrong, especially in virtual and remote environment. Frank's down in Georgia right now trying to get back home. So I'm glad I was here to kind of just jump in.
Okay, folks, well, we're going to spend the next 30, 35 minutes, whatever, reviewing with you via benefits. I'm going to go off camera for this session. And, we'll just hope that the issues that I've had so far during the day at least don't happen again for the next 30 to 35 minutes. So we will take it from there. Hopefully you can all see the screen. So we're going to be speaking about preparing for healthcare and retirement with Wespath's partnership with VIA Benefits. So we're going to cover who is VIA Benefits. There's going to be some introductory information in the beginning. And then we're going to have some kind of repeat and more in-depth information towards that third bullet, steps that you'll take. And then we'll review the health reimbursement arrangements, the HRA, a couple of ways in which the HRA can reimburse you for episodic periodic expenses or set it up to just actually do a premium flow on a monthly basis for you. We're also going to cover Medicare basics, kind of high level, just kind of a reminder of the various types of plan, parts of Medicare, Part A, B, C, D, that kind of thing. So who is VIA Benefits? VIA Benefits is an organization that has been around for 18 years. They are in their 18th successful year providing their services. They are the first and largest private Medicare marketplace. And that word is a critical word because this is a marketplace. They are not an insurance carrier themselves. But what they do is they work with organizations and employees, retirees within those organizations to match that individual, that household up best with the plans that can provide support for the Medicare activity that will occur for your healthcare over time. There's 2.3 million people that are already in the plans, and they partner with over 120 insurance providers. I'm going to mention that again in another slide where we can see some of the logos, the brands of those insurance carriers. Many of those ones are the ones that you would recognize. However, they also partner with ones that are more local, like we may not know nationally, but you may be familiar with in your local area. So they've got that full database, if you will, of 120 more insurance providers or insurance carriers. Now, as I said, they are a healthcare advocate in the insurance marketplace. So they themselves are not an insurance company. They are helping you navigate the marketplace. And really, like an underlying theme for this would be that at this point, you're actually acting like a consumer, and you're going to have tools and the ability available to you to start doing some shopping, start doing some comparing, and start determining, again, what would work best in your situation. As far as it is with Wespath, we started a relationship with them in 2012, and up through 2024, we have 33 plan sponsors that we are co-working with throughout Wespath and with Via Benefits. This translates into over 9,000 eligible members. And what's really interesting about this is it actually has over 1,000 unique plan designs. So all the plans chosen. So again, it's not a on the shelf, take it off. This is actually something that you will be able to tailor for yourself. And again, they use over 100 different insurance carriers. So here where Via Benefits comes in is they are providing you with the individual support to navigate what is this marketplace. Again, they are not the insurance carrier. They are not an employer type of arrangement or environment. What you'll need to do to start to utilize Via Benefits as a resource, as a source, as a provider of the benefit of the services, you have to enroll in Medicare. So when each of you determine it's time to get into Part A and Part B of Medicare, and everybody's a little bit different, but once you're there, that's when you can start to use them. And then you'll select a supplementary plan with the one-on-one support from Via Benefits. People go into this Part A hospital, Part B medical, and then there's the gaps, and they can help you determine what is the best arrangements for you to fill in any coverage gaps that you have and the cost sharing and cost savings that goes with that. Once your carriers have been determined to provide you with the insurance you're looking for, you'll be paying premiums to them. But again, you have the health reimbursement account or arrangement that will provide support to you to handle cost reimbursements and certainly premium reimbursements through the course of the calendar year. And they're a service that's always out there for you to reach out to for assistance. And this assistance is not just when you're doing the initial enrollment or each year during quote unquote open enrollment. It is actually during the course of the entire year, they are a resource for you to use. So how Via Benefits can help. They have a very in-depth consultative process. They will work with you and you will provide to them your medical history, your doctors, any specialists that you use, the prescription drugs that you use, the preventive medication drugs, and maybe some drugs that you use periodically or most recently, just to kind of give a good profile of where you are as an individual. They actually have a simplified selection process. It is done through one of their advisors, but you'll also hear about the ability to do it online. And it's an effortless enrollment. They will work with you on the phone. You can get all the information to them over the phone, and then they will start submitting all the analysis, all the comparisons and all to help you determine what is the best environment for you to go into for your insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, etc., and then help you with that enrollment. And then again, there is that ongoing advocacy. It's not where you're just going to get in and work with them from, October through December, and then after that, they're not available. They are available to you throughout. Now, again, this is a 4-step process. It's very hands-on. You're working with one of their advisors or counselors, but there is a way in which you can do all of this online. And there's a help you choose tool. And these are my doctors type of portal where you can actually self-serve yourself to get yourself established with the carriers that you want through the VIA benefits portal. Now, some basics of Medicare. Well, Medicare, the original Medicare is Part A and Part B. It's a healthcare program. It's run by the federal government, as we know. Part A is for hospitalization and Part B is for medical coverage that you have. And throughout the course of, your SICA contributions or FICA contributions, we have been funding our participation in Medicare through our employment years. It is for individuals that are 65 years and older. However, some pre-65 individuals can qualify for Medicare. Those with long-term disabilities, where those disabilities have actually also gone through the Social Security disability income arena, and you have that long-term disability, then you are eligible for Medicare. Those with end-stage renal disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, those also have more or less an immediate enrollment into Medicare. Now, Medicare is administered by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They're the oversight body. They are the regulatory body that oversees Medicare. However, the enrollments themselves are actually handled by the Social Security Administration. So it's really the infrastructure is in place with our Social Security numbers and how everything flows through SICA and FICA taxes. So we utilize that to take advantage of the enrollment into the Medicare plans. And the Medicare allows you to see any doctor or hospital that accepts Medicare. But when we get into the different types of gap arrangements that are available, some may be limited networks for access to doctors, and some may be more broad. Now with Medicare, again, the original Medicare, it is Part A and it is Part B. Part A enrollment is usually, but not always, automatic. So a lot of times people may take, if they're taking Social Security early, like my wife has, when she attains age 65, she will be enrolled in Medicare Part A. But Medicare Part B, you actually have to enroll in yourself, and we'll get into that. And you want to make sure you will enroll in Medicare Part B, that's the medical, on a timely basis, because there can be some downside consequences if you do not. So again, some people are automatically enrolled, those already receiving Social Security benefits and such. And other people may need to enroll, okay? Enroll, and when you're going to enroll, you're going to hear about how you have up to 3 months prior to your effective date for eligibility to enroll. You can go to your local Social Security office. A lot of clergy people that I've dealt with have told me they've done that and actually have had very good and positive experiences. During the Wespath retirement session, there was talk about enrolling with SSA.gov, and of course, there is a phone number there for you to use as well. And again, to take advantage of VIA benefits, you have to be enrolled in both Parts A and Parts B. So how does Medicare work? How does it work in terms of the context of your future coverage? Well, again, there is the original Medicare. That is Part A and Part B, hospital and Medicare, medical. But it does not cover all things. There are gaps in the coverage that you have. So there are a number of ways, 2 ways in which you can go out through an insurance carrier, get additional insurance to help you cover the cost of those expenses, the cost of those events as they may occur. We're going to talk about the Medicare Advantage with the prescription drug coverage, which is Part C. And we're also going to talk about Medigap, which does not include the prescription drug plan. You would be going to the marketplace to get your own prescription drug plan. So Medicare Advantage Part C kind of bundles the prescription drug benefit in, but with Medigap, they are considered and dealt with separately. And then there also are additional coverages. Medicare does not cover any dental or any vision issues or checkups and providers that you have. Those are going to be additional coverage that you work with via benefits to understand how you can get through other insurance carriers that additional coverage. And you also hear about how all of this can actually get bundled together under the Medicare Advantage plan. Stated earlier, there was going to be a slide coming up. There's over 120 insurance carriers that Via Benefits has a relationship with. Here you can recognize, for the most part, all of those insurance carriers. There are medical insurance carriers here. There are pharmaceutical benefit for the prescription drug plans. They are here, but also many other carriers that are not nationally known, but are localized that may come into your analysis as you're working through those. So with those plans, you have Medicare Advantage we'll talk about, the Medigap, the prescription drug plan, the insurance carriers, and then also how all of that can tie together with any dental or vision plans that you also want to receive to have a comprehensive, holistic insurance arrangement for yourself. The Medicare Advantage plans, these are the plans that are bundled with the prescription drug coverage, and these are offered by private insurance companies. Here you have all-in-one coverage. You definitely would have Part A hospital, Part B medical, Part D prescription drugs, but the way these are structured in that private insurance company, in that marketplace, they will often bundle in the additional supplemental benefits that you would be looking for. Dental, vision, hearing aids, even gym memberships. I think they call them silver sneaker benefits. So that all, again, depends upon where you go and how you take advantage of what's available. And again, how it works for you as an individual, you and your household, but you as an individual as well. Because one thing to note is that each individual goes into their own plans with their own arrangements. There are no family plans. There are no group plans. Each one of us is in Medicare on our own. But when you think about financing it, you're thinking about financing it as a household. There are two types of arrangements that you can get into with Medicare Advantage. One is the HMO, the Health Maintenance Organization. This is a narrow network of doctors that would be in the network. And it's a narrower range of providers that are within the HMO network. Thing to know about that is you actually have to determine who your primary care physician is going to be. The way the cost can work in an HMO environment is it may be a charge schedule. So certain events, certain types of activity that you have with that provider will have predetermined costs already associated with it that provider has already signed on to, so they know what they're going to receive by virtue of the type of service that they are providing to you. Because you have a primary care physician, if you need to go to a specialist for whatever reason, you will need to get a referral from your primary care physician, and the specialist also needs to be in that HMO network. So it may work for you in your area to be in an HMO. Again, there's no right or wrong answer to any of this, but there is an acknowledgement that is somewhat narrow in terms of the providers that are there, narrow in front of the facilities that may be available as well, outpatient, inpatient type facilities, and specialists. So a really good reason to engage with Via Benefits. There is also the PPO, the Preferred Provider Organization. This is a much wider network of doctors and facilities that are available to you. You do not have to have a primary care physician. You do not have to get a referral to go to a specialist. Really, the thing here to think about is you want your doctor to be in network. Any specialists that you've used in the past, that you may use periodically, you want to make sure they are in that PPO. And again, most really are when it comes to the PPO side. But you do want to make sure they're there. You can go out of network for like a specialist, for example, if you want, unlike the HMO, but it'll be at a higher cost. So just from a cost management perspective, just making sure you understand, like, your doctors and how they'll interplay with each other relative to access and availability in the network of the PPO. And then again, here, other benefits can be provided, the dental, the vision, the hearing aids. It all depends upon how these individual insurance carriers and whomever want to bundle this together and keep it all in one, or still have some separate types of coverage for you for varying benefits. A key feature to know about this is that these are always guaranteed issue benefits. They do not go back and look at any pre-existing conditions and qualify or disqualify or anything like that. You cannot be denied if you're going into a Medicare Advantage plan. Now, with the medical supplement or the medical gap, again, this is where the Part A, the Part B, hospital and medical is different than the prescription drug plan. They are definitely separate. So this starts with the original A and B, but it does not bundle in the prescription drugs. There would be separate coverage. So you could end up in a situation where you have two plans. The plans that's going to cover A and B, and a different plan, that's how that's going to work. You're going to have a different plan that's going to cover the pharmaceutical, the Part D. You could actually end up with two different carriers doing that as well. And as that might sound a little odd and a little uncomfortable, the fact is that is how you're going to start searching for the most cost-effective way for you to get the benefits that you're looking for. So you could have found an insurance company to cover the Medigap, and then you have a different insurance carrier altogether to cover the prescription drugs. But when you look at it net against the cost on a monthly basis, that is what works best for you. There is no network in Medicare supplements. Pretty much any doctor or facility that accepts Medicare, and most do, is available. Here, your costs, your premiums tend to be a little bit higher, but you have lower out-of-pocket costs. Here, I didn't really mention here how the cost structure might work is you can have a lower premium, but higher out-of-pocket or higher coinsurance deductible type of an arrangement. It is common, not 100%, but it is common that when you enroll in a Medigap, prescription drug, a Medicare supplement arrangement, that the initial premium is due at that time as a part of the enrollment process. So just something to note. Now, these Medicare supplemental policies, this Medigap, these are plans that have been structured by CMS. They have been given an allocation of letters to determine the plan itself. There's, I think, 10 of them right now. Each plan, Plan A, Plan B, etc., has its own plan design as what it's going to cover. I think Plan G is the most robust plan in terms of what all is going to be covered. But again, it all depends upon you as an individual. So there's varying levels of coverage that are into the different plans that you see. But each one of those plans has to be structured exactly the same. So a Plan A in one state and a Plan A in another state all have to be the same. What the difference is going to be is within the cost structure that's associated with the plan that you choose. So again, you're in a marketplace. There's going to be carriers in the marketplace that are going to provide Plan A plans. But you may find that, and I'm just going to speak in a general sense, there is a large carrier that has a nice economy of scale for Plan A, that your costs, your premium costs, could be lower than a smaller, more modest size insurance carrier. and the premium cost would be higher there. So even if you're looking at, hey, I want a plan A or a plan B, you still need to do some initial shopping to determine what is the best arrangement for you, not only from the coverage perspective, but again, from the premium cost perspective, but also looking at out-of-pocket costs in terms of co-payments, deductibles, etc. So you want to continue to keep that in mind as well. Again, these are regulated plans, so there's not a lot of variety per se in these plans. So if you're looking for more variety than what you would see after you've done more research, not this one slide, right, but more research on Medigap plans and these alphabet plans, you may say, well, actually the Medicare Advantage provides for me more options, more flexibility, and more choice, and you go there. But again, you're going to have the ability on your own, but certainly with Via Benefits, to figure out what makes the best sense for you. And then there is the prescription drugs. This is the Part D part of Medicare. Now, all of these plans have the same basic structure, but they can vary in what they cover and what they charge. So they have the same basic type of design, but there is some flexibility for each individual carrier to set up these plans. For example, each individual carrier will have a formulary, the list of drugs that are available to you through that particular carrier. So the drugs that they can fill for you through the plan that you've chosen. But one formulary may decide that drug A is a preferred brand, and the other carrier may say, no, we don't, drug A, we're not there yet. We're going to make it a non-preferred plan, a drug. And that will affect the cost structure that's associated with that particular drug. As you can see here, there are 5 tiers that gets associated with the copays. There is the preferred generic. These are pure generic drugs that have very, very low cost. There's non-preferred generic, so it may not be in that lower cost spectrum right now, but it is still considered a generic drug. So it would still have some more layered or modest costs. There's preferred brand drugs, the non-preferred brand drugs, and specialty drugs. And specialty drugs are the most expensive drugs, throughout all of this complex. Now, how the drug coverage works, and this is how it works in 2024. I think 2025 number is going to be coming. I noticed today Social Security announced there's a 2.5% increase in Social Security benefits for next year. So these all numbers may all be coming in now in real time. The way it works is you have your drug use. The first level is a deductible, right? So you're paying the full retail price until the deductible is met. Now, when I say full retail price, just please recognize that you're going to be in a group arrangement. So there is still going to be some manufacturing rebates and cost reduction relative to the top tier cost of the drug. But still, at the point of sale, whatever that full retail price is after that is what you would pay. And then depending upon the plan, your deductible could be zero, but it can go no more than $545 in this area of the coverage in Part D. And then next is the initial coverage level. So these are the co-pays that you would pay while you're in this coverage. So you've paid your deductible, you've kind of paid it all out of pocket to the $545. Now you're in an arrangement where, depending upon the drug, depending upon the plan, the pharmaceutical benefit manager, and their formulary and tiers, you would then be understanding what your copay would be for that particular drug or drugs. But we are continuing to accumulate what those costs of those drugs are at the overall level, at that discounted level, the manufactured rebates. You're paying the copay, but we are tracking what the retail amount would be, if you will. Once you get to an amount of spend of $5,030, then the coverage gap continues. Now, the coverage gap has often been called the donut hole. When it first came in, I think in the George Bush administration, it was the donut hole. I'm not really sure to what extent we still use it, but it was in the notes I was provided, so it's the donut hole. Here, you're only going to pay 25% for a brand drug, the brand name drug, 25% for any generics that you're using. So again, you're paying at the point of sale a reduced amount against what the actual full retail amount is. That's what you're paying, but we continue to count towards what we call the true out-of-pocket expense, that TROOP. We continue to get that number and accumulate that number. And then if in fact your drug spend becomes greater than $8,000, then you go to that bottom tier, which is the catastrophic coverage. So here you can see in that I don't know, reddish one there, it's only 25% of the people drop into the coverage gap. Here they say about 4% drop into the catastrophic coverage. And what happens here is it says no additional cost for covered drugs for the rest of the year, but there actually is a $9.20 copay for brand drugs and a $3.70 copay for a generic. Generics, again, very, very cheap. And this is on a 30-day supply. So with that $3.70, it's also going to look at what was 5% of that generic, and it's actually going to be the higher of the two. But still very, very reduced cost at that time. So you kind of like, and this is why it's very important for you to really get that homework done when you start and set yourself up for yourself and Medicare, but certainly with VIA benefits to understand your drug use, and then do the research on the formularies with your provider. As far as enrolling in Medicare is concerned, you have a seven-month initial time period to enroll in Part B. Again, Part A, most people are automatically in Part A, get the hospitalization. But Part B, not necessarily do you have to start to participate in Part B. Take a step back. You are going to go into Part B. You have a 7-month period of time. So 3 months prior to the month you turn 65 or retire if you're over the age of 65, 3 months prior to that, you should most definitely get yourself enrolled in Medicare Part B. They know the date that you're actually eligible for the benefits based on your birthday, or again, your retirement, and you'll have that there. There's no delay and there's no break in coverage. If for whatever reason a mistake is made, hey, I'm just turned 65, I'm going into B, or hey, I'm moving on from my employment, I'm going into retirement at 67, 68, now I'm going into Part B. You want to get enrolled quickly, because if you delay the start by 3 months, you don't have any coverage. So the delayed start, as it says there, you can end up with a possible break in your coverage. So you want to make sure you understand this time frame. You have 7 months to enroll. There's a risk if you delay or forget or what have you, because you can end up in a situation where you don't have any coverage and in Part B, and something happens and you're really paying all of that out of pocket. To come back to that middle area there, if you continue, the month you turn 65 or retire, if you continue working past 65 and remain on your employer's group plan, you do not have to enroll during this time frame in this window. So what's happening is you're as you would be with HealthFlex, you're in a group employer provided plan. Our plan provides creditable coverage under law and regulation. And if you are over 65, so you're 68, you're going into retirement appointment, you're ready to go into Part B, you would get from your annual conference a certificate of credible coverage. You would provide that as a part of your enrollment process, so they can say, hey, you're 68, but okay, you've been in a credible plan all this time. There is no penalty. You just go in. Again, you want to do it on a timely basis where you don't miss out on coverage, but you don't have to worry about any delay in enrollment and any penalty that may come across from that. Because if, just in the basic scenario, you're going to go into Part B, you have 7 months. Not only did you not get in the first 3 months, not only did you not get in the last 3 months, you haven't got in at all. There's going to be a Part B late enrollment penalty. And it's 10% on that year's Part B premium that's determined through Social Security and CMS, 10% penalty on that premium. And that 10% penalty is going to get attached to each full 12-month period that you're not in Part B. So if you skipped it for 2 years, it's going to be a 20% penalty on top of what that year's Medicare Part B premium is. And in most instances, that penalty will remain as long as you remain in Medicare Part B. So it's not that, okay, I had the first year or the first 12-month period with this penalty. No, that penalty, and I think it most often will continue to stay with you. Now, this is a little out of scope for our presentation out of Wespath, but there is a special enrollment period. If you find and determine that you qualify for the special enrollment period, again, talking to your local Social Security office, calling that phone number, using Via Benefits even, then there is usually no penalty. But as we know, there's all kinds of different enrollment periods throughout the year. Just want to make sure you are clear as to which one is applying to you at any point in time. So that's just an overview of the basics of Medicare Part A and Part B, the original Medicare, hospital and medical. Then we talked about you have Medicare Part C, which is Medicare Advantage plans, a wider network with some more opportunities to bundle things underneath one insurance carrier. You also have Medigap. Medigap does have a separate, you'll have to get a separate plan for your Part D and anything else you do for vision and dental and all of that. But again, no right or wrong answer here. We just set it all up and you get the premium flow going and you should be all set. And then you have the Part D with the prescription drugs. And all of this is complicated stuff. So, you know, we're just kind of giving you some foundation. Maybe Ivy touches on it a little bit later on, but still you have resources available to you to continue to think through and work through how it affects you. So with VIA, they have a 3-step process that has proven itself effective over time. First step is for you to prepare homework. Look at what type of, you look at your EOBs, right? Your explanation of benefits. What kind of healthcare, behavioral healthcare have you used just the past year or over the last several years? You want to look at your prescription drugs, etc. You want to review that. You want to review that on your own. You want to review that with the VIA benefits advisor. And then you eventually want to enroll. So you have in place the plans and the benefits available to you on that date certain. So to prepare, you want to create an account. And in that account, you want to provide the following information. And by providing more and more information, it narrows the options that would be available to you. But the good news there is it's not narrowing it down in a negative way. It's narrowing it down to really highlight what's in the marketplace available to you, again, as a consumer in mind, to make the best choices for the coverages that you're looking for. So the first thing is they're going to ask, and you're going to put in your personal information, your name, email, address, telephone number, etc. Now, the information that you provide to them, it is never sold to anybody, and it is never used for any other reason. It is just there on their platform to support your coverage. Your Medicare ID card, again, to be using VIA benefits, you would have your Medicare card, you have Part A, Part B, etc. There is a number that is there on your Medicare card. You would provide that in your account setup. As I've said a couple of times, you want to understand the prescription drugs that you use. You want to understand the details of those drugs. I was at another event yesterday and I kiddingly said, you know, these are the words that nobody can actually pronounce. So you have to make sure that they are spelt correctly. And then what the milligrams are, what's the dosage that you're using, right? And then the frequency of those medications. You want to get that in there. And then you're also going back to who your doctors are. Who is your primary care physician? Who's the doctor that you go to for your annual physicals? But what other doctors or practices are you utilizing to help you with your overall medical coverage, your overall health care? You want to be able to get all of that in as you're establishing your account. And again, you want to have that kind of narrowed down to your particular situation, but it also allows for the efficiency of the programming behind the scenes to make sure that who you have put in there are in what networks. Okay, so you may get a doctor that's in both the HMO and the PPO under Medicare Advantage, or you may find that the doctors you're using are not available in that HMO. So that, again, that's part of the filtering that will go through with the quality of the information that you provide. And then you'll review your plan options, either online or by phone with a licensed benefit counselor. Really, during the course of the initial introduction of VIA benefits, we kind of lean more towards using that licensed benefits counselor. If you're completely comfortable doing everything online and you kind of have the understanding of everything, absolutely have at that. It's available to you. I guess me personally, Frank, in a few years, when this would be presented to me, I think my first year I would rely on the counselor and get to know the platform, get to know the system with somebody's helping hand. And then maybe in future years, do my self-service, if you will. But for those, it's available for both. You can do a shop and compare. So this screen is a shop and compare. So now you have input all of the information that is there, everything from your name to the prescription drug dosage that you're using. You can start to embed all of that using the online system. The counselor will use the online system. And then all of that goes in, and now you start seeing results. And from those results, you're going to be able to sort those results by the cost. You've gone through, you're trying to figure out what the price of this may be by various opportunities that will be presented to you. Again, the plan itself, who the insurance company is that may be providing the package that you're looking for, or insurance companies, because again, A and B and D can be different, but it allows for you to do a side-by-side comparison. This is not enrolling you by going through and doing all of this. It's just a way for you to go deeper into your situation, get some information pushed back out to you, and start filtering things according to your particular priorities. And then also, as I said, you can go online and do it online. Back on this page, there also is or at least on their web platform, there is a My Doctors section. That's also where you would put in the doctors that you are utilizing, the primary care doctor you use, and your specialist. So you want to provide those doctors on that platform as well. Again, just to get all the information out there, to filter it through and get the best back to you. The VIA benefits counselors are licensed benefit advisors. And again, this is all about providing personal support. And again, for Medicare, everybody has their own plan arrangements on Medicare. No family, no group. Doesn't mean you can't be on the same call with your spouse and working it simultaneously. But again, each result will be standalone on its own. They are a 100% domestic workforce. They actually need to be licensed, insurance licensed. Excuse me, just grabbing a bit of water. They have to be licensed and certified by any state that they are providing the services for. They provide objective advocacy. There's no compensation. It's the compensation neutral of plans. So what that means is they don't provide an internal incentive to start to steer their counselors towards moving you into a plan because commissions are kicked off or any kind of other, asset sharing or anything like that can happen. Not going to happen. 100% domestic, licensed by the state. They're working with you objectively to get you the best results. Each one of these counselors or advisors goes through a United Methodist Church cultural training. All of our partners, all of our vendors goes through that training so they understand who we are. And again, they're providing individual telephone support about plans, costs, etc., advice and decision-making support based on your current coverage and future needs. So again, you put in that input, they can see it, and they can start working how that applies going forward. And then they can assist you with enrolling in the medical, prescription, drug, dental, and vision plans. And again, I'll say that this can be done online. If you want to go online, you're comfortable with that, you put everything in, you have let's say, a Medicare Advantage bundled together with A, B, and your prescription drugs. You know who you're going to use for vision and dental. Maybe, you have some hearing issues. You have someone there too, and now you're ready to start to enroll. What you would do is kind of like anything else, like Walmart or whatever. You would add to cart. Once you add to cart, you're going to start the checkout in the lower right-hand corner of the image on the right, on the left-hand side. They're now going to walk you through all of the steps you need to make to complete your enrollment. Now, most of the time online, going through that process, everything will be done right then and there. However, there could be circumstances that relate particularly to you where it's going to come back and say, we cannot completely complete the enrollment online. For whatever reason, there's an area that needs to be done offline. You would set up an appointment with an advisor and then complete either paper, but probably online, an additional application to get all of it comprehensively done for you. So most of the time, if you're comfortable online, you can do online. It may kick back and say, oh, this thing got flagged. You just need to do a little bit more work. Again, with VIA benefits, not on your own. And as I indicated, they provide advocacy all year long. They provide help and support. And the help and support feature is not just in that time period of the 3 months in enrollment all year long. And a lot of that help and support is actually done online. They have a robust area where you can get, questions, FAQs, PDF documents, all of that, where you can get the information you're looking for on the fly, or if you just know what you're looking for and you don't need to necessarily get on the line. On the right-hand side, though, as always, there is their business hours, Monday through Friday. I believe it's 7 to 7 Central Time. Those are their business hours. Again, always there for you. You have the shop and compare capabilities and functionality on that platform. You can do the help me choose, where you're looking at the various options that were provided. Your prescription checkout, prescription checkup. What really that gets to is over time, prescription drugs may change. Maybe you're not on a particular preventive or maintenance drug, but at some point in time you go on that. You need to update the system. I would do it immediately. I wouldn't wait until you're thinking about it again as you get close to the new year or the new time frame. You want to continue to keep that information as up to date as you can. If for whatever reason that the dosage changes, again, you want to just go in and make sure you have done that. If you're happy and comfortable with the plan arrangements that you're in, the decisions you had made some 10 or 11 months prior, your plans will automatically renew from year to year. There'll be no need to re-enroll unless you want to make a change. If you want to make a change, again, we've gone through it. They're there for you, and the online capability is there for you to do the research that you need. Now we're going to talk about the health reimbursement arrangement. Okay, this is a health account that is provided to you and funded by Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference. They will make an annual contribution, and on, I believe, the next slide, we'll explain the contribution, but they will make an annual contribution to this HRA. The dollars that you have in that HRA that gets contributed to you, you do not pay any taxes on that. That's not a taxable event. And as long as you use that account, those dollars, to reimburse yourself for eligible healthcare expenses, then they won't get taxed on that. Then you can come out and get that money cleanly. Again, no taxes from taking it out and reimbursing yourself. How these arrangements work is it is a reimbursement account. So it gets funded, you have the activity, then you go and get the reimbursement. You can't kind of front load something to a doctor or a specialist from the HRA. It has to happen as a reimbursement. So you're paying yourself first, you're providing a receipt, and you're getting yourself reimbursed. Now, funding to reimburse yourself can be applied to eligible premiums as well as out-of-pocket expenses across the board: medical, prescription, dental, and vision. But again, for all of that, you have the event, you get the appropriate documentation, then that you are reimbursing yourself from that HRA account. Each year, the HRA does get funded. If you do not use all of what's in your HRA in a given year, that will roll over to the next year. So the HRA funding is available. It's available as the date you enroll. So it's not coming to you on a monthly basis. The amount that you're going to see will be provided to you in and of itself. And if you don't use it all, whatever is left in that HRA will roll over into the next year. So that amount just goes to the next calendar year with that year's contribution being placed on top of it. So it can be if you're a low utilizer of these types of things, then it becomes kind of like a savings account, if you will, where it will grow, not invested, but it doesn't just go to zero 1 year over the next. That amount will roll over for future use. This is the 2025 funding, and this is based on years of service. So I think I said it when I was able to talk during the Wespath piece. Your clergy service record, your years of service, you want to make sure that's in good working order, because it's not just about the CRSPDB. It can also be about eligibility for the funding. So if you have 10 years of service, you can see it's 1,044. If you're married, it's the 1,566. Moving down, 20 years, 1,392, 2,088. And then for 30 years, 2,000, I might be a typo, 2,088, and then 3,132. I might have had a typo when I transposed that. The asterisk there, you have to be married at the time of retirement for the you and spouse amount to be provided. If you have a health reimbursement arrangement now, they do not get combined. They remain as separate accounts, they're kind of mutually exclusive, if you will, but you'll still have the ability to use the HealthFlex HRA and get reimbursements from that as you can your HRA that you're going to get in retirement. Okay. To get that HRA, you must enroll through via benefits to get that HRA. I think there may be a couple of exceptions to that around PERS and TRICARE, things like that, that may be specific in your state or in your environment. But as a general rule, you enroll through via benefits to get that HRA. Now, there's a couple of ways in which the reimbursement can work for you. Here you're getting reimbursed for maybe a premium or maybe a service that was provided. You're going to have to pay that premium. You're going to pay the bill for that service. Then you're going to provide that to the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier or service provider will then submit the information on that down to Via Benefits. Now that Via Benefits has the documentation for the event that is already captured, they will then reimburse you back into your account through direct deposit. So you're having the service, you're working through the carrier, working through Via Benefits, you're getting that reimbursement. So $50 premium comes back to you within several days after you initiate that. Now, for the direct deposit availability, so here in your setup, you are providing your banking information, right? Because you want to do direct deposit. So just like with the the annuities and the income you're going to get from Wespath, you would provide your banking information. Here, though, in the setup of this could take upwards of 6 to 8 weeks with all the players that are involved to get it completely set up. So just kind of setting an expectation there. But then thereafter, the process will go smoothly. And again, you can be reimbursed up to the amount that's available in your HRA. Now, another interesting way in which you can get the reimbursement is through an automated reimbursement process, but this is just for your premiums only. So you know what your premiums are. What you would do is set up with your bank again, you're working with your bank, to have them automatically send to your insurance provider or providers, depending upon the arrangement, what your premiums are. So that's going to go to the insurance provider, the insurance carrier. That carrier will then provide a receipt to Via Benefits, and then Via Benefits will reimburse you through direct deposit. So now this is a nice, clean, and easy way for you to set up just your premium flow during the course of the year. And again, this one also takes about 2 or 3 months to set up, but that doesn't mean that it's only for that purpose. So you have, the $1,000 in your HRA, of which $800 is going to be that premium flow as you go through. Well, you can use that $200 to reimburse yourself using this process as well. So they can work in tandem. But I mean, I like this process. Again, I'm a few years away from it, but that would be certainly something I would be considering doing. Again, Via Benefits, they are there when you need them. You can use them online. Online information is available 24/7. They are available, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time with that 866 phone number. You'll have access to the portal, myviabenefits.com/Wespath. and you'll access that. You'll access your account. The 3 service centers you can see there on that map that are in Salt Lake City, Phoenix, and Dallas. Those are the service centers. But again, wherever you're dealing with a licensed and certified state-specific type of individual, they're all going to be covered. Where regardless of what state they're sitting in, they will have the appropriate other state licenses at their disposal. And every year, continuing education, they got to keep that up. So that concludes this part here. I will come back on screen if I can. Okay. And were there any questions that came in? I will try to see what has happened. Okay. Looks like Meg, you were, if you're there, Meg, looks like you were kind of handling those as they were coming in. And I appreciate that. And there were 3 questions that came in. I'm not sure. Okay, so let me take a look at this. As a clergy couple, do we get individual contributions or married? So I don't know, Meg, if you had an opportunity to look at that. And is an HRA similar to an FSA? FSA cannot be used when you qualify or sign up for Medicare. Is that correct? The FSA is different than an HRA. An HRA is the plan sponsor providing a contribution into the account. The FSA is funded through pre-tax dollars coming through your payroll as a W-2 employee. So you have an FSA account. It's limited to how much you can roll over from 1 year to year, but eventually that FSA account will not be available to you, especially in retirement, because you're no longer eligible for the FSA because you're no longer an employee with W-2 earnings. Okay. Where again, with the HRA, the way this is set up for you in retirement, you'll continue to get those contributions through the year. So I hope that helped with the question that was provided there. So if there's no other questions, Meg, if you want to come back on, I believe we're now going to take a lunch break.
Hi, yes, we're running a little bit behind. So Ivy's scheduled for 12:45, but so I'm thinking closer to 1 probably. Maybe take a half-hour lunch.
And Ivy's coming on at that time?
Well, she's supposed to at 12:45, so
Oh, okay.
maybe 5 of 1.
Okay. So all right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I
We'll
understood.
take a
Because again,
lunch.
time zones, I'm a little confused. I will keep this up and running. Bob will keep his up and running. I got through that, thank God. So we're okay, and hopefully that was helpful. And again, this recording will come back out. And any additional questions you have, you can certainly send to Meg, to me, and we'll do our best to get you those answers as quickly as possible. So I'm going to stop sharing, which I probably should have already done, and then come back. Well, I mean, again, I'll be here behind the scenes when Ivy gets started.
Well, thank you very much for having me in today to talk about Social Security benefits. My name is Ivy Houghton. I'm a public affairs specialist with Social Security Administration. Although prior to coming to this position, I was a claims technical expert in the field offices. So I welcome any questions that you have for me. Those questions will be monitored through the chat. And I generally leave plenty of time at the end of the presentation so that I can answer all those for you. I'll kind of work through those slides. Hopefully we'll get any questions that you have answered, but certainly if there's more questions at the end, please feel free to post those to the chat and I'll be happy to answer those. Without further ado, I normally cut my camera during the presentation just because it hangs up my slides a little bit, but I will pop back on once we get to the question and answer portion. So today's presentation covers all things Social Security. We will start by talking about our retirement benefits, and then we'll move to talking about spouses and survivors benefits, touch on disability and Medicare, and wrap up with our online services, and of course, plenty of time for those questions and answers. A conversation about Social Security, a good place to start that conversation is how Social Security is funded. And Social Security is funded with a payroll tax called the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. And when you work for an organization that pays into FICA, you might see it listed on your check as FICA. You might see it as OASDI. You might even specifically see it broken down as Social Security and Medicare. But this is a payroll tax that's deducted from a paycheck and it's matched by the employer, meaning the employee pays a portion and the employer pays a portion. The total amount is 15.3% of gross wages. 7.65% of that is paid by the employee, and 7.65% percent of that is paid by the employer. And then once we get that tax, of that 7.65%, 6.2% of goes into the Social Security Trust Fund, and 1.45% goes into Medicare's trust fund. And this tax funds all things Social Security's benefits. So retirement, disability, survivor's benefits, and of course that Medicare portion goes to fund Medicare's health insurance. Now, in addition to collecting that tax, while you are working and paying in, Social Security is tabulating something called credits. And these are essentially the building blocks of qualifying for Social Security retirement benefits. Now, you need 40 credits in order to be eligible to draw a benefit from Social Security. But how do you get those credits? Well, you earn those credits through work as well. And each year there's a dollar amount set that is equal to 1 credit. So for 2024, for every $1,730 that you earn, you receive 1 credit. Now, the interesting thing about this provision is you can only earn 4 credits per year. So you can see by earning just over about $6,900, you'll receive all 4 credits for the year. It doesn't really matter when you earn those. It can be in the beginning of the year, it can be spread out throughout, just kind of depends on how often you're working. But you might be wondering, well, I'm paying way more into Social Security than $6,900 a year. What's happening to the rest of my funds? Well, the additional funds that you pay in go to increase the amount that you receive from us each month when it's that retirement time. But while we're tabulating these credits, since you need 40 and you can only receive 4 per year, we generally say it takes about 10 years of work in order to get insured for Social Security benefits. But once we've tabulated those credits, we do keep track of the dollars because when it comes time to retire, we use this formula to determine what your actual benefit is going to be. So the first thing we do is look at your entire wage career over time. So that's all of the years that you paid in. And we make adjustments for wage levels over time because certainly what we earn in the 80s, 90s, much different than what wage levels are now in 2024. Once we've done that, we look for your top 35 years and then we average those. So it's a common misconception that we only look at the last 5 or 10 years. We do actually look at the top 35 years. Once we have those, we average those, and the result we get is something called the averaged indexed monthly earnings. Now, that's kind of a lengthy title there. So with Social Security, we love our acronyms. So averaged indexed monthly earnings, we call AMY for short. And once we figured your AMY, we put it into this computation. And so this is an example of someone who, after we did that 3-step formula, had an averaged index monthly earnings or an AMY of $2,500. That will equate to $1,480 a month in Social Security benefits at this person's full retirement age. But how did we get there? Well, for everyone who is applying for retirement benefits, we get that AMY, and then for the first 1,174 of that $2,500 AMY, we credit at 90%. For any earnings between 1,174 and 7,078, we credit at 32%. If an individual's AMI happens to exceed that 7,078, then anything above 7,078, we credit at 15%. You can see in this particular example, because the AMI of this individual was 2,500, you can see in that third block down, there's zeros. That's simply because this person's AMI did not exceed 7,078, so there's no calculation necessary there. If you go all the way to the right-hand side of this chart, though, and added those totals up, that's how we would get that 1,480 as the monthly benefit. Now, one of the most common questions that we get at Social Security is, when is the best time to retire? And although myself and likely any of my colleagues, if you ask them that question, they would say, well, it all depends. And I know that seems vague, but truly, Social Security does not know what everyone's retirement picture needs to look like. We're not aware of what expenses you might have to meet. So it really is a personal decision, but it is important to have a few tips in mind when you're considering when is the best time is. So I alluded to on the last slide someone's full retirement age. For Social Security purposes, everyone has an early, a full, and a delayed retirement age. And I like to start by talking about full retirement because, in essence, full retirement is when Social Security anticipated you likely would collect your Social Security benefit. And therefore, they pay you the full amount of your benefit at that time. Now, your full retirement is dependent on your year of birth. And so, for everyone on the call, we're likely going to have a full retirement age between age 66 and 67, but it could vary a little. So, for example, if you were born 1960 or after, your full retirement age is 67. If you were born prior to 1960, it could be 66 and 4 months, could be 66 and a half. Before we leave this presentation, I will show you where to find a super helpful calculator on our website that will let you know what your full retirement age is if you're not sure. But this particular example is showing the example of someone who has a full retirement age of 67. And if they waited till their full retirement age to collect that benefit, they would their particular full retirement benefit is $2,000. They would collect the full amount at that time. Now, if you go to the left-hand side of this chart, the earliest an individual can collect Social Security benefits is age 62. But if you collect any time between 62 and your full retirement age, that is considered early retirement. And two things are true. Number one, the benefits are slightly reduced. And once you take a reduced benefit, that benefit is reduced for the lifetime of collecting it. So it will not go back up when you turn your full retirement age. That's simply to accommodate the additional years we will be paying you. The second thing is there's a maximum you can earn and still collect all 12 checks per year, which I'll get to on the next slide. But let's talk about the financial impact. If you move all the way again to that age 62 on the left-hand side, if this same individual decided to lock their benefits in at age 62, you can see they would lock that $2,000 benefit in at $1,400. In general, it makes about a 25 to 30% difference if you collect early. But you can see by waiting a year, 2 years, the closer this individual is getting to their full retirement age, they lock their benefit in at a little bit higher rate. On the flip side of this full retirement, you see delayed retirement benefits. Now, just like when you collect benefits early, it's slightly reduced. If you wait beyond your full retirement age to start collecting, the government provides you a little incentive. It's something called delayed retirement credits, or DRCs for short. And it equates to an additional approximately 8% per year for every year that you wait beyond your full retirement age. Now you can see if this individual took advantage of this provision all the way to the right-hand side. If they waited till age 70, they would lock their benefit in at 2,480 just by delaying, because we'll be paying less time than we anticipated. Now, it is important to note, though, if you do take advantage of delayed retirement credits maximize at age 70. There are no more benefits payable for delayed retirement credits beyond age 70. So, if you do decide to take advantage of this provision, just know that when you get near your 70th birthday, that's a perfect time to get in touch with Social Security to get that application filed so that you're not missing out on any benefits beyond that. Now, I said a moment ago, when you apply for benefits early, two things are true. Number one, your benefits are slightly reduced. And number two, there's a maximum you can earn and still collect all 12 checks for Social Security for the year. This year in 2024, for individuals who collect their benefits early, can make up to an additional $22,320 gross in wages above and beyond that Social Security benefit. Now, note that this limit is only applicable to Social Security wages and self-employment. So other benefits like other pensions or VA benefits, that type of thing will not count against this 22,000. Now, if you were to exceed that amount, though, for every $2 you went over that limit, you wouldn't qualify for $1 in Social Security benefits for this year. Now, the year you turn your full retirement age, though, things are quite different. And I like to use myself as an example to kind of illustrate how this works, because my birthday is in June. It's right in the middle of the year. So if you pretended with me for a minute that I was collecting my Social Security benefits early, but now this upcoming year, I'm going to be my full retirement age in June. What this middle bar is saying is that from January through the end of May, I could earn $59,520 just for those 5 months. If I happen to exceed that limit, for every $3 I went over the limit, I wouldn't qualify for $1 in Social Security benefits that year. But once June rolled around, the month of my birth, regardless of what day, once June rolled around, from that month, any month after that, and any year after that, I could make any amount of money that I wanted to, and it would not affect my Social Security benefits. In other words, no benefits would be withheld. Once you're that full retirement age, the world is kind of opened up to you as far as how much employment you want. Couple of things on this provision, though. When you do work, even if you've collected your Social Security retirement benefit, you've filed that application, started collecting. When you work, those FICA taxes are still withheld from those wages. So we do check with the IRS twice a year to see if there's any additional funds that we need to give you credit for. So you might see that increase your benefit. The other thing is if you happen to make a mistake, you accidentally do work over this limit and you get some Social Security benefits withheld. It's important to note that those benefits are not gone forever. We also run an automatic accounting of your benefits at your full retirement age, just to make sure that we don't owe you any additional funds. So, for example, if we planned to pay you a certain amount and we didn't actually end up doing that because you got some benefits withheld for working over the limit, we would refigure that back into your benefits. So that could cause a little increase in the amount you receive. It would never be as much as if you waited till your full retirement age, but you do get credit for those earnings. Another common question that we receive is whether or not Social Security benefits are taxable. And the answer is Social Security does still allow an individual to elect to get their Social Security benefits without having taxes withheld. But it's important to note that Social Security is taxable income, so it can be taxed for federal purposes. Now, generally speaking, the IRS is the experts on on taxation, but it does help to kind of know or have a foundation of what they use to know if you may have to pay the IRS taxes on your Social Security benefits. So the formula you're looking at in front of you is directly from the irs.gov website. When the IRS is considering this, they are seeking to find something called your combined income. And how they find that is they take your adjusted gross income plus any non-taxable interest that you have, plus 50% of your Social Security benefits. So 50% of what you received from us for the year. And that gives them your combined income. Once they have that, they put it into these brackets. So for 2024, those that file an individual tax return but have a combined income of between 25,000 and 34,000 may have to pay federal income tax on 50% of what they receive from us. If the combined income is more than 34%, then they may have to pay income tax on 85% of what they receive from us. Same kind of formula applies for those that file a joint tax return. It's there in the center of the screen. Just a little bit higher income limits associated, of course, since we're talking about multiple incomes there. Now, of course, this is not a 50% or an 85% tax. That's just the portion of the benefit that the IRS looks at. So we issue you a 1099 at the end of the year that tells them 100% of what you received from us. But when they're deciding what you may owe on taxes, these are the percentage of that they would look at. From there, it's really helpful to talk with a trusted tax advisor or even the IRS who can look at your full tax picture to decide how much you may want to have withheld. So if you found that you did have a combined income that fell into these brackets, a good conversation with a trusted individual would be great. They can tell you how much to have withheld, and then all you have to do is make a phone call to Social Security to request that. You can do it at the time of your application or any time throughout the year. So if you find you need to make adjustments, there really isn't a lot of restriction to it. You just let us know and we'll be happy to make those adjustments for you. Now, in addition to paying the worker themselves, we also have the option to pay family members. This is something Social Security calls auxiliary benefits, and it specifically applies to spouses and children. So when we look at the spousal benefit, the maximum a lower wage earning spouse could collect off of their higher wage earning spouse is up to 50% of that person's benefit. Now, this day and age, it's quite common that someone might have their own retirement benefit and also qualify as a spouse. And so it's important to note that it's not your retirement plus 50% of that spousal benefit. We always pay the higher of the two. And they did pass some legislation a while back that said that when you apply for benefits, you must apply for any and all benefits available to you. So we do ask that you file your retirement application, and then if 50% of your spousal benefit is higher, then we'll do an application for spousal benefits as well. The earliest you can collect a benefit as a spouse is age 62, but just like with all of our benefits, if you do collect that benefit early, the percentage you collect is slightly less, so it would be slightly less than that 50%. But know that there's no risk involved to the higher wage earning spouse. If a spouse comes on your benefit, it will not reduce the benefits of the higher wage earning spouse in any way. But if the two of you are still married, the higher wage earning spouse must be collecting their benefit in order for the lower wage or earning spouse to collect that spousal benefit. These rules apply in a situation of a divorced spouse as well. But in the case of a divorced spouse, there are a few additional criteria that need to be met. The first one is that the marriage must have lasted 10 years or longer. And you must be currently unmarried in order to collect off of a former spouse. The earliest you can collect is age 62, but if you remarry, you generally cannot look back on a former spouse's record unless your later marriage ends. So if your later divorced, or if later on your second marriage, your spouse passes away, then you could look at a former spouse's record again, but you must be considered unmarried in order to collect. Now, in the cases of a divorced spouse, if you've been divorced longer than 2 years, and you know that your former spouse is at least age 62, and you know they've paid in enough to qualify for a Social Security benefit, you can file an application under their record, regardless of if they are collecting their benefit or not. And so Social Security will kind of do that legwork for you when you apply for benefits. We will search any and all benefits available to you. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that mention of a combined benefit. I gave the example earlier that this day and age, it's not uncommon that you might qualify for your own retirement plus be eligible as a spouse. And in cases of that, you may receive a combined benefit. So I kind of want to illustrate how that works. This is our example of Kelly, who has her own full retirement benefit of $800. Now, Kelly's spouse is eligible for $2,000. As a spouse, she's eligible to collect up to 50% of that $2,000 benefit. In her case, like I said earlier, they passed some legislation that said that she has to apply for any and all benefits available to her. So how do we get her to the higher of the two benefits? Because $1,000 is still higher than her own benefit. So we would first ask her to file her own retirement application and start collecting that $800. And then we would file a spousal application to make up the difference. So in this case, just keeping the math easy, the difference between $1,000 and $800 is $200. So we'd pay $800 on her own, $200 as a spouse. The total is $1,000, the higher of the two benefits. The other eligible family member is children. So if when you come on your retirement or disability benefit, if you have a child who is your adopted, biological, or dependent stepchild, if they are unmarried, under the age of 18, or in high school or below, or if they were found disabled prior to age 22, they may be eligible to collect a benefit off of your record as well. The highest percentage they can collect is up to 50% of your benefit. Again, it has no negative effect on the parent at all, but if there is more than one child on the record, the percentage may be a little bit less to each child because there is a family maximum on each record. Now, family members may also be eligible to collect benefits in the cases where a loved one passes away. For this type of family benefit, we call this a survivor's benefit. And it really involves the same group that we've been talking about. So a child who is under the age of 18, in high school or below, or found disabled prior to age 22, may qualify to collect a survivor's benefit. The biggest difference here is the percentage they can collect. It's up to 75% of what the parent was eligible to receive. Again, the family maximum applies. So if there's multiple children on the record, it could be slightly less than that 75%, but the maximum would be 75%. Now, in the cases of a spouse, a surviving spouse, things are quite different. As a surviving spouse, you can collect as early as age 60. If the surviving spouse is also disabled, you could collect as early as age 50. Another large difference here is the percentage that you can collect as a survivor. Survivor's benefits are paid at up to 100% of what that individual was eligible for. But just like with all of our benefits, if you lock them in at a younger age, you lock it in at a slightly lower percentage at 71.5%. And here's kind of a side-by-side chart just to clarify a little bit. On the left-hand side, the spousal benefits, auxiliary benefits in the case of the spouse is still living. And on the right-hand side, surviving spouse benefits. So on the left-hand side in the life situation, it shows the earliest is 62, highest percentage is 50%. On the right-hand side, In the case of an individual being passed away, the earliest you can collect is age 60, 50 if you also are facing a disability, and the highest percentage being up to 100%. Of course, if you lock that benefit in early, it's locked in at that little lower rate, 71.5%. Social Security does still pay a one-time lump sum death benefit of $255 to an eligible family member, eligible spouse, or in case of a child, if they meet certain requirements. So that's certainly a consideration. The other survivor's benefit that we pay has to do with parents' benefits. These benefits are payable to a parent who is age 62 or older who is receiving more than one half of their support from their child. And although this is a particularly small percentage of individuals that qualify for this, we are seeing an uptick in those who are caring for their aging parents. And so I do like to mention it because if you are caring for your aging parent and the unexpected happened, there may be a possibility for them to collect a benefit under your record as well. So, certainly something to keep in mind if that is a situation that you may face in the future. Okay, before we leave survivors benefits, I want to touch on one exception to a rule I've been saying throughout the whole presentation. I've been saying that when you lock in your benefits at an early age, you take a reduced benefit, and that reduction is with you for the lifetime of collecting your benefits. Well, the exception happens in the case of survivors benefits. There is one exception to that rule. So what do I mean? Well, let's say the unexpected happened and you had to collect your survivor's benefits early at age 60. But then later on down the line, when you turned 62 or your full retirement age, or even delayed retirement age of age 70, you found that your retirement benefit was higher than what you were currently collecting. You could switch over to your retirement benefit at that later date and collect the higher amount, even though you had been collecting survivor's benefits early. Or vice versa, and maybe this is more common. Let's say you started collecting your retirement benefits at age 62. You would have taken a reduced benefit at that time. But then later on down the line, your spouse passes away, and now you're beyond your full retirement age. If that survivor's benefit is higher at the 100% rate than what you are getting on your retirement benefits, you can switch over and collect that full amount, even though you were collecting your retirement benefit early. I can't stress enough that this only applies during the survivor's benefit realm, though, so you can only switch in between benefits when you're seeking survivors and or retirement. But I do like to mention it here as well because it could make a difference in the calculations when you're trying to plan for the future. Now, many in the community might be facing medical issues that are keeping them from working. And for that reason, they might contact Social Security seeking information about our disability benefits. So for 2024, the definition for disability that we use is that an individual must have a severe medical condition that is expected to last 1 year or longer or result in the person's passing. This medical condition must be so severe that it keeps an individual from working up to a limit that Social Security calls substantial gainful employment. For this year, that dollar amount is $1,550. So, in other words, the person's medical condition must be so severe that it keeps them from earning more than $1,550 a month in wages. If the individual meets this criteria, then we will examine their age and their prior work history to seek which type of our benefits would be best for these individuals because we do have two programs and they are similarly named and so they're often confused. But on the left-hand side, it's discussing Social Security Disability Insurance or SSDI. Now, these benefits are supported by the Social Security's trust fund. So, what that means is in order to draw that benefit out, an individual must have worked and paid those FICA taxes in to qualify for a benefit. And the benefit amount they receive is directly related to what they paid in, very similar to that retirement calculation we looked at. On the right-hand side, we also support a program called Supplemental Security Income, or SSI for short. Now, this is paid from a general treasury fund. It is not paid from the Social Security Trust Fund, and we primarily use it for individuals who might have been disabled at a young age, and maybe didn't have a lot of opportunity to pay those FICA taxes in through work. And so they may have a lower benefit amount. Or maybe they didn't have an opportunity to pay in at all. For example, we use this program a lot for children. Biggest difference here, though, is that this program is an income and resources-based system. So we do look at income and resources for the household when we're determining whether someone is eligible for this benefit. So for example, a child, we would look at the parent's income and resources. In any case, when a person applies, we do investigate both of our types of benefits to ensure that we place the individual where they can really maximize the benefit they can receive per month. Now, a conversation about disability is a good lead into talking about Medicare, because an individual who qualifies for Social Security Disability, or SSDI, will qualify for Medicare benefits a little early, after they have been receiving the SSDI benefits for 24 months. On the 25th month, Medicare eligibility will kick in. Also, those facing some more severe medical conditions like ALS, commonly referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease, or kidney-related issues, they may be eligible for Medicare a little earlier than they thought. This is based on treatment plan. So I always stress that if you know someone or you yourself are facing either one of these diagnoses, just please get in touch with Social Security. You may be eligible a little bit sooner than you think, and we'll be happy to take a look at that for you. But for most of us, we'll be looking at Medicare in our retirement, and our earliest opportunity to do that is age 65. And the first enrollment period at 65 is called our initial enrollment period. Now, this initial enrollment period lasts a total of 7 months. So it starts 3 months before an individual turns 65. It lasts through their 65th birthday, and then lasts 3 months after their 65th birthday. So you have that full 7 months to decide whether you're going to bring on Medicare coverage at that time or not. If you're currently on Social Security benefits, you'll be automatically enrolled in Medicare. If you're not on Social Security benefits, then you'll need to file an application with Social Security to get started. Now, you do have a few options here. Some may not choose to enroll during the initial enrollment period, and that's okay, except there is some risk associated with it. And so in order to not be under that risk of receiving any type of surcharge or penalty, you'll want to make sure that you meet the special circumstances required. So for example, you may not need to bring on Medicare because you're working and covered under a group health plan. If that's the case, you're okay to delay. Or your spouse might be working and you're covered under their group health plan. If that's the case, you're okay to delay. And then when one of those situations changes, you would enroll under something called the special enrollment period. But it is important to note that once one of those circumstances changes, you only have 8 months to get enrolled in Medicare. And there is an additional document that would be required for your employer to sign to prove that you had been working and covered under that group health plan from the time you turned 65. Now, if both of those enrollment periods pass you by, every year there's a general enrollment period between January 1st and March 31st. And any eligible individual can apply during that time. But note that if you didn't apply during your initial enrollment period and you did not meet one of those special circumstances we just discussed, you could receive a surcharge on the amount that you pay for Medicare each month. And it equates to 10% for every year that you were eligible but didn't take the coverage. So for example, if 3 years have gone by that's a 30% surcharge. That means you'll pay whatever the base fee is for Medicare plus 30% forever. It never goes away. So I can't stress enough to please that when you turn 65, please get in touch with us. We can answer any questions that you may have. Please consider whether you meet those special circumstances so that you're enrolling at the right time for you. That being said, Medicare has 4 parts: A, B, C, and D. Hospital insurance, or Part A, covers you when you're an inpatient in a hospital for 1 night or longer. If you have those 40 credits, in other words, you paid those FICA taxes, that percentage of Medicare goes to support hospital insurance. So you will receive that free of charge. Part B, as in boy, is medical insurance. This is doctor's office visits, emergency room visits, lab testing, things like that. Kind of the more common things that we use our medical coverage for. And it has a monthly premium. This year, it's $174.70. Now, that does vary from year to year. It does go up and down, it fluctuates. But for 2024, it's $174.70. And the two of those together is considered original Medicare. Those are the 2 parts that you sign up with Social Security for. Once you've obtained those, then you can kind of move to the other parts. I'm going to skip to the 4th part, prescription drug plans. You can choose a standalone prescription drug plan and retain your original Medicare. You can also add a supplemental plan like a Medigap policy that would kind of help you meet any annual deductibles associated with those plans or any co-insurance associated with those. Or on the right-hand side of this chart, it exhibits the 3rd part of Medicare, Part C, like CAT, or commonly referred to as Medicare Advantage plans. You have the option to select these private health plans that take over the servicing of all parts of your Medicare, but they run a little bit more like group health plans. So instead of paying annual deductibles and co-insurance, for example, you may just pay a co-payment at the doctor or a co-payment at the emergency room. They also include some additional benefits that Medicare Original does not cover. So like vision, hearing, and dental, often some fitness programs, that type of thing. These are the programs that are being advertised on TV by former football stars, or if you're nearing 65, you're probably getting flooded with advertisements for these, but they are not required because in many cases they have an additional fee. So it is a choice you can make to go through one of these Advantage plans. When you're approaching this decision, though, it can be pretty daunting. So I always make reference to Medicare's website at medicare.gov because they have such a great tool where you can put in your zip code, the doctors that you see, prescriptions that you take. So it takes this list of literally hundreds of these plans available down to the ones that would best suit your needs. So try that calculator out when you're approaching this decision. If online services are not your thing, that's fine. Call 1-800-Medicare. Their representatives will be happy to help you make the decision whether you want to bring on these additional plans or not. Okay, so we've covered all these benefits. How do you get them when it's time? Well, I always make reference to our online applications. We have worked so hard in the last few years to simplify this process. You can apply for any of our benefits online, including retirement, spouses, disability, just Medicare, a combination of any of those benefits. For example, if you're not sure if your spousal benefit is higher than your retirement, file that retirement application. We ask you marital questions on that application, and we will screen you for the higher of the 2 benefits. The only application you cannot file online is survivor's application. So if you are planning to apply for survivor's benefits, feel free to call our 1-800 number on the screen. It's 1-800-772-1213. And we'll be happy to schedule you an appointment to meet with one of our representatives by phone or meet with one of our representatives face-to-face in one of our offices. A good place to start your planning process, though, is to go to ssa.gov. On the left-hand side, you see a prepare section. all of the information I've shared comes from that prepare section. And although we don't provide copies of our slides because there is changes of legislation throughout the year and we really seek to have the most current information out to you, I did provide the coordinators of this presentation website information for every slide that I have in my slide deck. So it's links directly to this information, but it's all under the prepare section. That's also the area where you can find out where your full retirement age is. There's a very simple calculator in there where you can put in your date of birth and it will tell you immediately what your full retirement age is. If you need drilled down information though about your record, if you look at that navy blue band across the top, all the way to the right-hand side, there's a sign in option. That will direct you to our My Social Security accounts. The first step in signing up for a My Social Security account is to set up a login.gov or an ID.me credential. If you already have one of these with another government agency, perfect. You can use it to kind of make it simpler to access all of your time without having to have a lot of username and passwords. If you have an older account where you do have a username and password, you'll soon be prompted to set up a login.gov or an ID.me credential just to kind of get all of our accounts on the same page. But it's super helpful to have a My Social Security account before you come on benefits because you can review your retirement benefit estimates, the numbers that are specific to your situation. You can replace your Social Security card. You, of course, file your application within there. You can also look at a detailed earnings record. So if you click on our earnings tab, you can look at your entire earnings record, which I highly recommend doing just to make sure we have everything accurately reported. You can also look at a quick snapshot of your benefits, the Social Security statement, where it just gives you a quick snapshot of 9 different ages, what your benefit amounts would be. Gives you a quick snapshot of your earnings. The most current years are on display there. It also provides an age-related fact sheet, kind of the most common questions that your age group asks Social Security. So we touch on those answers for you. And if you're 62 or above, you'll also receive a Medicare fact sheet as well. Also very, very helpful to have one after you come on benefits because all the notices that we send will be available to you online in a database. You can download benefit verifications if you need to prove your earnings to other agencies. You can make simple changes like address, phone number, direct deposit, all without having to wait on our phone lines or come into our offices. You can view your tax information for Social Security purposes. You can also designate an individual to handle your benefits if something were to happen. So this is something called advanced designation of representative payee. If you became incapacitated for any reason, we could appoint a person to handle your benefits on your behalf. What this makes easier for Social Security purposes and safeguards your benefits is that we allow you to list at least 3 trusted individuals who you would be okay with handling your benefits if the unexpected happened. I highly recommend listing individuals there. You don't have to list 3. You can list just 1. You can list up to 3. You can change them at any time. We let you know annually who you have on the record, but it is very, very helpful to expedite the process if you become incapacitated to get family members information that they might need on your behalf. It also helps Social Security know that we are selecting someone who you would trust with your personal information. So please do advance designate when you come on benefits. It's super helpful for the future if the unexpected were to occur. If you use social media, if you like to use social media, please follow Social Security. That is another place where we put all of our new changes in legislation and new updates. So if you're trying to keep on the cutting edge of what's going on with your benefits and with the agency as a whole, please follow us on social media in addition to checking with ssa.gov often. And with that, I'm going to just display this slide regarding your Social Security card. If you happen to need a replacement Social Security card at this time, feel free to scan that QR code. Our online applications are very simple to use for replacements of Social Security cards as well, and you can likely save yourself a trip into the office by applying online. So I'll leave that displayed. I'm going to transition to the chat here to see if I can answer any questions that may have been posted. Let's see, I don't see any yet. I'll give you a few minutes just to post any questions that you might have for me in the chat. I will be happy to address those questions. Like I said, I'll just give it a minute here. I'll get a little sip of water while we see if there's any questions out there you might have for me. Okay, so it does look like we have a question that posted to the chat that says, on the Social Security statement, I see that 1 year I have is $0.00. I know I paid in money that year. How do I get Social Security to correct that? I went to the web link that they provide to correct errors. However, they were not able to direct me to any web link to fix the issue. What do I do to correct the error? Great question. You'll need something from the IRS that shows what you paid that year. So if you still, depending on how far back this year goes, if you still have your tax return, that's what we will use to correct that error. And in that case, you just need to, if you want to handle it by mail, you can write a quick letter saying, this is not correct on my record. Here's a copy of this. I need to have it corrected. You can call us, we can enter it into the system, and then you can follow it up with that proof. Or you can walk in that proof right into a local Social Security office and we will fix it for you. If it happens to be a year that you don't have your tax return on anymore, or you don't have that W-2 anymore, we can also use a transcript from the IRS. So you can call the IRS and say, I need a transcript of my taxes for the year, whatever year it is, and they can provide you a printout and you can provide that to Social Security in either one of those forms that I just discussed, and we'll get that updated. We always do, when you apply, have you review your earnings record. So even at that time, if you're close to filing, getting ready to file that application, obtain those documents, and then you can supply it with your application as well. And we can correct it at that time. So you do have several options if you need to get that corrected. The next question that posted, I'm over 65 and working full-time and covered by a group insurance. You said I have 8 months to apply for Medicare. Is that 4 months before I end full-time and 4 months after, or based on my birth date, or how does that work? So it's 8 months from the time that situation changes. So you're working and covered by the group health plan. If that group health plan ends, you have 8 months from that time period. Or if you stop working, you have 8 months from when you stop working to get those documents into Social Security. So that the times kind of starts when that situation changes. Until then, you don't really have to take a lot of action. But I always suggest when you're approaching retirement, if you know a month or two in advance, since there is that extra document that needs to be completed, you can give Social Security a call. We'll mail you out the form and you can have it signed, then you're set and ready to go. The sooner you get in touch with us, the better, because it does take us a little time to process applications right now. So you'll need a few months to do that. So if you're anticipating you're going to retire soon, request the form and that'll get the ball rolling for you. I didn't see anything else post to the chat. I'll give it just a couple more minutes to make sure that I give everybody an ample opportunity. Let's see here. Okay, well, I think I might have answered all three of them. see here. You see if I can flip into the other screen. I just want to make sure I get them all answered. I think so. Well, in that case, I won't keep you any longer. I know sometimes in a public forum, it's difficult to maybe you don't want to share that information. So certainly you can get in touch with Meg. She knows how to reach me if there is something that might come up after the presentation. But I do appreciate you having me in today to talk about Social Security benefits. And I guess I will hope everyone has a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Ivy. It's always a
you.
pleasure to have you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for joining us.